As they enter Satsuki's property, Satsuki tells Naoto that they should go through the back. There they run into Yayoi, who immediately recognizes Satsuki and rushes over to compliment how beautiful she's become. Then she notices Naoto and asks who he is. Satsuki introduces him and Yayoi greets him warmly, clearly excited to finally meet him, calling him the original Naoto, which leaves him puzzled. Naoto learns that Yayoi has the wrong idea about his relationship with Satsuki. She assumes that the two were childhood sweethearts who maintained a long-distance relationship for 6 years. Naoto tries to correct the misunderstanding, but Yayoi appears too caught up in her romantic notion to listen. Satsuki informs them that she needs to talk to her parents first about a letter and asks Yayoi to entertain Naoto. Naoto is curious about the mention of a letter but decides to save his questions until later. After Satsuki leaves, Yayoi explains that Satsuki refused to take over the family inn. The inn originally belonged to her grandmother, who passed away earlier in the year. Ownership was then handed down to her mother, Hiroko, who wanted to train Satsuki to run it. However, Satsuki fled to Tokyo to live on her own instead. Naoto finds it strange that Satsuki would reject such an opportunity. Yayoi admits she isn't sure of the reason, but hints that it might be connected to the fact that Hiroko and Jin aren't Satsuki's real parents. Naoto is shocked to learn that Satsuki is adopted, but the revelation helps him understand why she had acted distant when he asked about her home during the train ride. He starts to realize how little he truly knows about her and wonders how deeply he should involve himself. Meanwhile, Tamayo receives a call from Satsuki's household, informing her that Naoto is in Nagano and will stay the night. Suzu feels left out, wishing she could stay at the inn too. Later, Satsuki and Naoto are served a meal of local noodles and Bandit's fried chicken. During the meal, Satsuki asks if Yayoi told him about her past. When Naoto confirms it, he asks why she never mentioned it before. Satsuki explains that she didn't want him to pity her. After dinner, Yayoi prepares her specialty vitality drink. The two take generous sips, delighted by how delicious it tastes, only to immediately pass out after finishing the drink. Meanwhile, Suzu ends up sharing a bed with Tamayo since Naoto isn't home. She worries about how Naoto and Satsuki are doing, remembering what happened 6 years ago. After Satsuki had destroyed their garden, Suzu had chased after her for answers. That was when she caught a glimpse of Satsuki meeting with a man who claimed to be her older brother. Back at the inn, Naozumi returns and greets Yayoi, who seems unsurprised by his arrival. He explains that he came back after hearing that Satsuki had finally returned home. By morning, Naoto dreams of Yukari but suddenly wakes when he feels something soft and warm. Realizing he's in bed next to Satsuki, he quickly scrambles away in panic. He's relieved that she's still asleep, but confusion soon sets in as he has no idea how he ended up here. Feeling overwhelmed, he decides to head outside to clear his thoughts. Unbeknownst to him, Satsuki was awake the entire time. She quietly calls him an idiot, since there's no reason for him to get so flustered when she is at Yukari. Outside, Naoto walks around the garden until he reaches what looks like another house. Curious, he wonders if it's where Satsuki lives. On the side, he finds a small, lush vegetable garden and spots Naozumi munching on fresh produce, calling him a vegetable thief. Naoto startles Naozumi, who reacts by stuffing a tomato into Naoto's mouth, scolding him that he's not supposed to be in this part of the property. When Naoto introduces himself as Satsuki's friend, Naozumi's demeanor instantly changes. Realizing who he is, he declares that the two Noes should get along, leaving Naoto completely baffled. Later, Naoto returns to the inn and is served breakfast. Yayoi suggests that he and Satsuki go sightseeing since Satsuki will be meeting her parents for negotiations later that evening. Naoto agrees, then asks about the man in the Hawaiian shirt. Yayoi explains that the person he met was Naozumi, Satsuki's older brother, and adds that the two aren't related by blood. Moments later, Yayoi proudly presents Satsuki in a dainty dress to Naoto, who immediately notices how lifeless her expression is as she clearly despises the outfit. They decide to visit a nearby shrine, and while Naoto tries his best to stay upbeat, Satsuki merely comments that it's too hot. Naoto suggests they grab a drink to cool off, but Satsuki rejects every option he offers. He eventually complains that she must be the first person he's met who doesn't bother paying respects when visiting a shrine. He decides to pray for both of them instead, wishing for Satsuki's mood to improve and for her meeting with her parents later to go well. Satsuki is taken aback since every wish he made was about her. Flustered, she asks if he's mocking her, but Naoto insists he's being sincere. Their day continues with a simple lunch of local noodles and a visit to a souvenir shop, where Satsuki seems unexpectedly drawn to a small frog plush. Later, they stop by a cafe since Satsuki needs to use the restroom inside. While waiting, Naoto hears Yayoi call his name from a nearby table. When he approaches, he notices a stack of books about basic conversations in different languages. Yayoi explains that she studies during her free time since the inn welcomes many international guests, and she wants to be able to communicate with them. Naoto admires her dedication, saying it's obvious she loves her work. Embarrassed but pleased, Yayoi agrees. She then asks how his date with Satsuki is going. He tells Yayoi that he and Satsuki aren't actually dating and that he already has a girlfriend. However, he adds that Satsuki is a precious childhood friend and he couldn't bring himself to abandon her. Just then, Satsuki returns. Yayoi smiles and wishes them a pleasant day as they leave. Satsuki glances back at her, noticing the warmth in Yayoi's smile. Curious, Satsuki asks what they were talking about. Naoto admits that he told Yayoi the truth about their relationship. Satsuki lowers her gaze as they find a nearby bench to sit on. Naoto gently guesses that she doesn't really want to meet with her parents later. Satsuki quietly confirms but doesn't elaborate. Naoto encourages her to be honest. She should tell them she wants to follow a different path. She confides that her parents don't actually need her to take over the family business at all. Satsuki adds that no matter where she goes, she only ever causes trouble for people. Naoto suddenly realizes that he and Satsuki have shared the same feelings of being an inconvenience to others. Satsuki smiles and apologizes for dragging him into her problems. But Naoto knows she's not being entirely honest since she was the one who pulled him onto the train. He tells her that he knows she must want something from him. Satsuki denies it, admitting that she only wanted to mess with Yukari, though she hadn't expected Naoto to insist on walking her home. Naoto tells her it's fine and that if pretending to be her boyfriend will help her go back to Tokyo, then he's willing to play alone. He takes her hand as they start walking, assuring her that he truly doesn't mind the act. Naoto encourages her to look forward to building a better future for herself, but Satsuki simply replies that she's happy now. Naoto tells her that life doesn't work that way. If they want the future they dream of, they need to work for it. That evening, Naoto introduces himself as Satsuki's boyfriend to her parents, Hiroko and Jin. Their initial reaction is stern and tense, but soon their expressions soften into remorse. They thank Naoto for coming all the way from Tokyo and even spending the day with Satsuki. To his surprise, Hiroko and Jin seem to fret a lot. They worry that everyone must be exhausted from the long trip and insist that they rest. Naoto finds himself speechless. He had expected strict parents who would oppose Satsuki's choices. Once everyone settles down, Hiroko and Jin begin to explain. Years ago, they had neglected Satsuki because the inn was struggling and they had to work tirelessly to keep it afloat. Now that things have stabilized, they want her to come home so they can finally spend time together as a family. They also open up about their struggles with Naozumi, who has been keeping bad company, making it difficult for them to approach either of their children. Curious, Naoto asks why they decided to adopt Satsuki when they were already having trouble with Naozumi. Jin explains that they didn't take her in to secure the inn's future, but because they knew her biological mother, Sayuki. Satsuki had been entrusted to their care when Sayuki faced difficult circumstances. Now that they've met Naoto and seen how much he cares for her, Hiroko and Jin feel reassured that Satsuki is doing well. They'd admit that the letter they sent was to inform Satsuki that she would marry Naozumi so the two could run the inn together. Naoto shudders at the thought of Satsuki marrying someone like Naozumi. He immediately reprimands her parents for not considering Satsuki's feelings. Satsuki steps in and explains that Naozumi was originally meant to inherit the inn, but both of them feel it would be too difficult to manage. Besides, there's also Yayoi to consider. Still, Satsuki feels indebted to the family for taking her in, so she says she won't complain if that's what has already been decided. Just then, they hear Naozumi's voice rejecting the idea. He declares that he could never see Satsuki as anything other than a little sister. Naozumi further complains that he has no intention of running the inn either, insisting that they can't just suddenly pretend to be one big happy family. Their parents apologize for pushing too much, and both Naoto and Naozumi in unison ask what will happen to Satsuki. Satsuki lowers her gaze and admits that she still doesn't know what she wants for her future, but for now, she'd like to return to Tokyo and think about it there. Jin agrees on the condition that she contacts them regularly. Satsuki accepts, earning warm smiles from both Naoto and Naozumi. Later that evening, Yayoi asks Naozumi if he's truly fine with leaving Satsuki in Naoto's care. Naozumi says it's no problem since they aren't actually dating. He already guessed the truth about their relationship from the start. Before leaving, Satsuki has a chat with Yayoi, who teasingly says that at least her brother can stop pretending now. She reveals that she knows Satsuki had used Naozumi as emotional support when Naoto was no longer around. Satsuki recalls how her brother didn't like being a replacement at first, but still looked after her sincerely, dedicating much of his time to helping her grow stronger. When she turned 16, he suddenly announced that he would be going abroad, telling her that she no longer looked like his little sister, and that living together might cause some issues. He also encouraged her to live freely just like he does. Satsuki knows she owes him a great deal. Without Naozumi, she wouldn't have known what to do with herself back then. Yayoi smiles warmly and tells her that she should visit home from time to time. Satsuki hesitates, worrying she might be a burden, but Yayoi reassures her that everyone will always look forward to seeing her again. Naozumi decides to see them off at the station, but before they board the train, he leans in close to Satsuki and whispers that she can always come to him and complain if her love ends up unrequited. Satsuki quietly tells him that Naoto already has a girlfriend, but Naozumi insists it doesn't matter whether Naoto likes someone else, what matters is how she feels about him. He points out that she's been in love with Naoto for the past 6 years, though Satsuki only stares at him blankly in response. As they pass through the gate, Naozumi worries about Satsuki, realizing she seems completely unaware of her own feelings. He can't help but think that Sayuki is partly to blame for that. He remembers the time he found Satsuki holding a hoe and wondering when her mother would come to pick her up. Naozumi thinks that Naoto isn't the only reason Satsuki wants to stay in Tokyo. Naoto helps Satsuki onto the train as she finally begins to realize that she might truly be in love with him. It's evening and Yukari tries to contact Naoto, but his phone can't be reached. She worries that something might have happened between him and Satsuki, but convinces herself that Naoto will come back to her. She wonders what kind of things Naoto might like. While browsing online, she finds a website saying that men enjoy certain types of poses when their girlfriends send selfies. Curious, she decides to try it out. The first pose is simple. It's supposed to show how happy she is to send him a selfie. The second is a little cutesy. When she reviews the photos, she can't help but think they look too plain. She gets an idea to use her phone camera's timer for a full-body shot and decides to change her outfit. After trying a few, she settles on her sleepwear, since one of the tips says even a plain outfit can look alluring. She experiments with a cat pose, a regal one, and even one where she balances a drink. Still, something feels missing. She scrolls through more comments and finds that many guys like cosplay. Remembering her costumes from the sports festival, she decides to use them for the photos. She tries on a cheerleader outfit, an apron, and finally her Christmas costume. Naoto suddenly calls, so she quickly answers, and Naoto immediately apologizes for contacting her so late. He explains that he's on his way back from Matsumoto and had accidentally left his phone on the train. He goes on to say that he got involved in Satsuki's family issues, but things have been resolved and Satsuki no longer has to transfer schools. He reassures her that nothing improper happened between him and Satsuki. Yukari feels a pang of sadness knowing that Satsuki will be returning, but decides not to comment on it. Naoto tells her that he has something for her and asks if they can meet after his shift tomorrow. After the call, she resumes reading the article for more photo tips. This time, she learns that some men prefer photos that show more skin. She tries on several swimsuits but isn't satisfied with any of them. Finally, she puts on the one she bought the other day. She looks at herself in the mirror, feeling her face grow hot. It's much more embarrassing than she expected, so she decides to try something different. She positions herself on the bed but becomes too flustered to take the photo. The thought of Naoto seeing something so shameless makes her panic. As she hurriedly searches for her clothes, the noise wakes her younger brother Shu. Annoyed, he barges into her room to scold her for being so loud. After seeing Yukari in her state of dress, Shu becomes embarrassed but still scolds her for wearing something so indecent. The next day, Satsuki attends her swimming class. Her coach is thrilled to hear that she won't be transferring schools. Instead of matching his enthusiasm, Satsuki suddenly asks what love means. The coach misinterprets her question as a confession and panics. Satsuki reflects on her previous actions and how she always assumed her behavior was driven by the desire to tease Naoto. But after Naozumi dissected her feelings, she realizes that there might have been other emotions behind them. The coach calms down and hesitantly asks if she meant that she's in love with someone else. Satsuki denies it, saying it's useless to fall in love when the other person already loves someone else. Listening carefully, the coach tells her that it isn't pointless to fall in love even if it's one-sided, but she should be careful not to cause trouble for anyone. Satsuki asks what she should do, but the coach only tells her to focus on passing her class. He encourages her to start swimming, reminding her that standing still under the heat will just make her feel sick. It's only then that Satsuki realizes she actually does feel faint. Meanwhile, Yukari visits Shigenobu's shop and confides that she failed to take a photo for Naoto. She asks what kind of pictures men like, and Shigenobu bluntly replies that they like full nudes. However, he advises her not to send any because it would give people the wrong impression and make her seem careless. Then he asks what kind of photos she would like to receive from a guy. The question confuses Yukari at first, but she soon realizes something and thanks him for the advice. Shigenobu asks if she'll be seeing Naoto soon, and Yukari confirms that she'll meet him after work. Yukari finds Naoto talking to his manager. The manager looks pleased to finally meet Naoto's girlfriend, and Naoto hands her a small lover's bond charm. He explains that he wanted to give her one as a gift and as an apology for making her worry. Yukari lights up at the sight of the charm, especially since it's about love bonds. She asks if it means their bond will last forever, and Naoto, slightly flustered, says that it will. She then tells him that she needs to give him a gift in return and asks if they can take a picture together. Hearing this, Naoto's manager offers to take the shot for them. Inside, Makina peeks out the window just in time to see her boss framing the picture. The manager encourages the two to act more like a couple, and once they're close enough, he snaps the perfect shot. Naoto and Yukari thank him, and Yukari shows the photo to Naoto, proudly saying that it's his present. From the window, Makina watches them in disbelief. Just as the moment settles, Satsuki suddenly appears and walks straight up to the couple. She calmly declares that she's in love with Naoto. Everyone nearby freezes at her sudden confession. Naoto stammers, asking what she means, but Satsuki says she meant exactly what she said. Naoto initially thinks she's joking, but Satsuki's expression is completely serious. She asks him directly whether he loves or hates her. Naoto struggles to respond, caught between the two choices, but before he can answer, Yukari cuts in. She tells Satsuki that she shouldn't have put Naoto on the spot like that, especially when she knows he already has a girlfriend. Satsuki looks at Yukari and replies that her question was for Naoto, not for her, so she has no reason to interfere. Something inside Yukari snaps. She grabs Satsuki's hand and tells her that the two of them need to talk. Satsuki stares back, unfazed, and asks why. But Yukari refuses to explain. Satsuki sighs and tells Naoto that she'll get his answer later. Yukari immediately realizes that she absolutely cannot allow Naoto to be alone with Satsuki. She tells Naoto to continue his day without her because she needs to talk to Satsuki in private, then drags Satsuki away. Naoto watches the two walk off, unsure what to do. Just then, Makina slips out of the restaurant still in disbelief. She exclaims that she can't work right now. Yukari pulls Satsuki under the bridge and reminds her of the conversation they once had while sharing a bath. Satsuki had promised her that she and Naoto would remain childhood friends. Yukari admits that she'd already suspected Satsuki's feelings for Naoto even then. She tells Satsuki that it's fine to be in love, but confessing the way she did earlier was out of line. She insists that Naoto would never tell this childhood friend that he hates her, and adds that she and Naoto are already dating, so she shouldn't have confessed. Satsuki stares at Yukari and points out that she's still insecure despite already being Naoto's girlfriend. Stepping closer, Satsuki tells her that maybe she's no better since she's just letting her emotions take control now. Still, Satsuki admits she can't hold herself back anymore. She says she's tired of being stuck in the position of a childhood friend. Satsuki declares that she plans to completely destroy her old relationship with Naoto. Yukari asks if that also means she's willing to destroy her relationship with him. Satsuki calmly replies that it will all depend on Naoto's answer. Meanwhile, Naoto waits by the bridge for Yukari's reply. He's already texted her an "I love you," hoping to ease her worries. His mind is still reeling from Satsuki's confession. Just then, Shigenobu calls and asks if he and Yukari are doing alright. Naoto hesitates, unsure how to respond since everything between them has been so complicated lately. Sensing his hesitation, Shigenobu invites him to grab some food, figuring Naoto might want to talk things out in person. Naoto agrees but says he'll call back because at that very moment, he feels a familiar weight on his back. Satsuki clings to him gently and says she knew he'd be near the bridge since he always comes here whenever he's troubled. She then tells him to follow her because there's somewhere she really wants the two of them to go together. Naoto finds himself inside a swimming club and Satsuki explains that her coach directed her there for some extra training. She reminds Naoto about his promise to teach her how to swim. Naoto refuses to get into the pool with her, especially after her confession. He tells her that he cannot act overly kind toward her since he is currently dating Yukari. However, Satsuki ignores his reasoning and reveals that she is already wearing her swimsuit under her clothes. She playfully asks if her swimsuit excites him, but Naoto turns red and claims he only has eyes for Yukari. Meanwhile, Shigenobu visits Naoto's home, but it is Suzu who greets him and tells him that Naoto is not there. Suzu casually mentions that she thinks Naoto is in his popular phase. Shigenobu looks confused, so Suzu explains that Naoto sees Yukari every day, works with Makina, and recently visited Satsuki's parents. She says it feels like Naoto is surrounded by girls wherever he goes. Shigenobu groans, realizing how messy his friend's situation has become. Suzu then asks if Shigenobu likes anyone, and he admits that he still isn't over his previous relationship with an older woman. Suzu feels bad for him and offers to introduce him to a classmate, but Shigenobu refuses. Naoto stays by the poolside watching Satsuki swim. He asks if she is serious about being in love with him, and Satsuki admits that she isn't sure. She says she has never been in love before, but both Naozumi and her coach described her feelings as love. Naoto feels guilty but explains that he does not hate her. However, he cannot return her feelings because he is already in a relationship with Yukari. Satsuki looks disappointed but admits that she had already expected his answer. She begins to swim away, teasingly saying that she already knows how to swim a little and that he can go home if he wants. She swims farther into the pool while Naoto can't help but feel a strange emptiness. He wonders if he would have answered differently if Satsuki had told him how she felt 6 years ago. After a while, Naoto realizes he can no longer see Satsuki above the water. Panicking, he dives in and pulls her out, scolding her for nearly drowning. Satsuki insists she wasn't in danger and explains that she just wanted him to go home so she can have some distance from him, since she doesn't want to be a nuisance. She then admits that she doesn't want Naoto to stop caring for her. From the changing room, Shu catches sight of them together. When he returns home, he notices Yukari's photo with Naoto and tells Yukari that Naoto is cheating on her with Satsuki, and that he saw them together at the swimming club. Yukari tears up but calmly says that she already knows what she has to do. On the last day of summer, Naoto hurries to meet Yukari. He decides to set aside his worries about Satsuki and focus on his relationship with Yukari, believing she deserves a proper high school romance. When he reaches the top of the hill and sees her waiting, he can't help but notice how beautiful she looks. The previous day, when Naoto returned home, he was surprised to see Tamayo joining him and Suzu for dinner. Suzu explained that while he was away, Tamayo had been eating with her every day. Tamayo shyly admits that eating with someone feels nice and that Naoto should always make enough for her too. Suzu smiles brightly, happy that they can all eat together and that she no longer has to dine alone on days when Naoto is at work. One morning, Satsuki visits Naoto and Suzu to walk to school together. Suzu explains that Naoto went on a date with Yukari the previous day, but she ended up breaking up with him. Meanwhile, Shigenobu walks to school, rereading the message Naoto sent him. He is surprised to learn that it was Yukari who initiated the breakup. During class, the teacher notices Yukari's absence and asks if anyone knows what happened. Naoto excuses himself from the room and darts out. At the same time, Satsuki finds Yukari alone in the meeting room. Concerned about how depressed Naoto seems, she asks what happened between them. Yukari hesitates, but eventually explains everything. She recalls their date and how difficult it was to tell Naoto that she wanted to end things. He had been kind and considerate, even offering to stop seeing Satsuki if it would ease her worries. But when he mentioned that Satsuki understood him the most, Yukari realized her place in his heart and decided to go through with the breakup. Now she questions whether she made the right choice. Tears well up in her eyes as she wonders aloud why she is confiding in Satsuki, who was supposed to be her rival. Satsuki silently offers her a handkerchief, gently remarking that she's ruining her pretty face. Yukari shakes her head weakly, saying she isn't pretty at all. She admits that since dating Naoto, she's become needy and greedy for his attention. She feared that if she stayed with him any longer, he would see just how ugly she had become. Elsewhere, Naoto runs through the school halls, lost in thought. His mind replays the day Yukari ended their relationship. He remembers sensing something was off, assuming she was just waiting for a kiss, only for her to tell him she no longer wanted to be his girlfriend. He finally stops running to think. He wonders if he had done something wrong or if Yukari had simply fallen out of love long before that moment. In the end, he realizes it doesn't matter since they are no longer together. Outside the meeting room, Satsuki and Yukari prepare to part ways. Before walking away, Satsuki quietly tells her that she isn't her rival anymore since Naoto has already turned her down. Yukari is taken aback that Satsuki can still speak to Naoto so casually. Satsuki simply says that acting awkwardly around him would be unfair to Naoto. As she leaves, Yukari silently admits to herself that she still sees Satsuki as her rival. Soon after, Naoto spots Yukari and calls out to her, relieved that she's still at school. He apologizes for how things ended between them, and Yukari quickly apologizes as well for the harsh words she said. Before either of them can continue, a teacher interrupts and scolds them for being outside of class. Yukari notices a message from Shigenobu asking if she and Naoto have broken up. She replies that they haven't, leaving Shigenobu confused since Naoto had already told him the opposite. Meanwhile, Satsuki sits quietly by the school pool, wondering if things will change now that Yukari and Naoto have broken up. Preparations for the school festival are underway. They recall that last year's takoyaki stand was a huge success, especially when Yukari wore a costume to serve customers. Yukari says that this year she plans to help with food preparations instead. Her classmates suddenly notice Naoto nearby. Yukari excuses herself and runs over to talk to him, while the girls chat among themselves. They comment that Yukari has been looking prettier since summer break and assume she must have a crush on someone. They guess it might be Shigenobu, speculating that they could start dating during the school festival because of a curse that supposedly causes couples to form during the event, unaware that Shigenobu is within earshot. Later, Naoto takes a break from festival preparations, still confused about Yukari's behavior. Even after their breakup, she acts as though nothing has changed. While he's lost in thought, Satsuki suddenly appears beside him dressed in a ghost costume, hovering around playfully. Annoyed, Naoto tells her to stop fooling around, but when she stands in front of him, he notices her outfit and asks why she's dressed like that. Satsuki explains that her class is running a haunted mansion and she's playing Ghost Number 6. Naoto blushes when he realizes how short her costume is. Satsuki comments that she is relieved to see some color in his face again and teases him by leaning closer. Naoto turns even redder, muttering that now isn't the best time to joke around since he just got dumped. Satsuki eventually gives in but remarks that Naoto always tries to suppress his urges, She admits she's curious herself and asks if it's possible for them to see how far they can go when they're alone together. Naoto is stunned by how straightforward she is. Satsuki clarifies that she's suggesting it only out of curiosity, not as a way to start a relationship. She reminds him that she isn't even sure if what she feels for him is love. Naoto wonders if she could really go through with it even without love. Satsuki answers that she could if it's with him. Even if she doesn't love him, she definitely likes him more than anyone else she knows. Before leaving, Satsuki promises that she won't initiate anything, but tells Naoto he can come to her anytime if he wants to try. Naoto is left sitting there, flustered and confused, wondering why Satsuki would make such a proposition. Meanwhile, Shigenobu meets Yukari in private and tells her that Naoto believes they've already broken up. Yukari goes pale and nearly rushes off to explain, but Shigenobu stops her. He tells her that while it would be easy to clear up the misunderstanding, he knows she'll still end up seeking reassurance because of her insecurities. Realizing he's right, Yukari steadies herself and asks what she should do. Shigenobu tells her about the so-called school festival curse. Yukari initially assumes it's something frightening, but Shigenobu explains that it's actually a love curse. He explains that if two people kiss during the after-party, they're destined to get married within 3 years. He insists it happens no matter the circumstances. Yukari understands why people call it a curse, but she also sees it as a sign. It could be the reassurance she needs so that Naoto will always be hers. Excited, she realizes this might be her perfect chance to confess again and seal their relationship with a kiss. Shigenobu advises her to let Naoto keep believing that they've broken up for now, saying that it will make him miss her even more. Yukari thanks him for the advice and leaves, determined to act on his plan. Once she's gone, Satsuki steps out and asks Shigenobu whose side he's really on. Shigenobu says he's actually on hers. Since Naoto still thinks he and Yukari are broken up, Shigenobu tells Satsuki to use this chance to steal him away from Yukari. Back in the classroom, Naoto's class receives their final role assignments for the school festival. Yukari tries to request a switch from server to food preparation so she can work alongside Naoto, but the boys protest loudly. The class representative insists that Yukari must serve due to popular demand. Yukari casts a wistful glance toward Naoto, realizing she won't see him again until the after-party. Shigenobu, noticing her expression, quietly tells Naoto that Yukari was staring at him and suggests that she might be regretting their breakup. Naoto feels his heart race with hope at the thought, but the feeling is quickly overshadowed by the memory of Satsuki's proposition. As long as he still has feelings for Yukari, he knows he can never accept what Satsuki offered. Later that day, Naoto and some classmates sit together in the cafeteria, talking about the upcoming festival. The conversation shifts to rumors that many couples will form during the event. Shimada asks if Naoto and Satsuki are dating, which he quickly denies. Shimada then mentions hearing that Yukari plans to confess to Shigenobu during the festival. Naoto freezes at the rumor, and several of the boys say that they'll give up on pursuing Yukari since they could never compete with Shigenobu. When Naoto returns home, the thought lingers in his mind. He can't help but compare himself to his friend and wonders if Shigenobu might actually be the reason Yukari broke up with him. The next day, after finishing their supply run for the festival, Naoto and his classmates notice another class nearby. Among them, Naoto spots Satsuki, who also sees him. Without hesitation, she walks straight toward him. Naoto panics and tries to tell her he isn't ready for whatever she's planning, but Satsuki says she won't do anything today since her teacher promised them barbecue and she doesn't want to miss it. She then hurriedly leaves to rejoin her classmates. As his classmates prepare to go as well, Naoto lingers behind, lost in thought about Satsuki's offer. He admits to himself that he's tempted, but what truly stays with him is her confession. Deciding he can't ignore it, he tells his classmates he has something to do and turns back. He finds Satsuki waiting alone, crying a little as she laments missing out on the barbecue just to see if he'd come back. Before they can say anything more, the sliding door opens and Yukari and Shigenobu step inside. Quickly, Satsuki explains that they arrived from different groups to do festival shopping and only happened to meet by chance. Yukari feels a small sense of relief upon seeing that Naoto and Satsuki weren't alone the entire time. Shigenobu explains that Mio had asked Yukari to buy some supplies and he had offered to help carry her bags. When the two groups part ways, Satsuki immediately notices that Naoto's expression looks drained, the life seemingly gone from his eyes. They stop to rest under the shade of some nearby trees where Naoto tells her about the rumor that Yukari has feelings for Shigenobu. Satsuki listens quietly before reminding him that it shouldn't concern him anymore since they've already broken up. She then asks if he still hasn't gotten over Yukari. Naoto admits that it's not that simple since Yukari was his first girlfriend. Satsuki asks if she's not enough for him or if it's because he prefers someone with a bigger chest. Embarrassed, Naoto tries to explain that he doesn't want to be the kind of guy who jumps at the chance to be with a girl as soon as he is dumped. Satsuki tells him that it's fine and that she wouldn't hate him for it. The moment hangs in the air before they eventually find themselves at her apartment. Naoto grows tense and asks whether they should turn off the lights or close the curtains, but Satsuki tells him it's better to leave them as they are so he can see everything clearly. However, seeing how uneasy he looks, she decides to close the curtains anyway and suggests that they bathe together to help him relax. She offers to let him go first since the bath is small, but once he's inside, she steps in as well, though she stays outside the tub since her tub can only fit one person. Satsuki reminisces about their childhood and how they used to do everything together 6 years ago. Her words stir something in Naoto's memory. He realizes that back then, he truly did love her, and that Satsuki had been his first love. That realization makes him pause. He knows he can't use her to fill the emptiness left by Yukari. Standing from the tub, he tells Satsuki that he's backing down for today. He explains that he only wants to do such things with someone he's dating and only when both of them consent to it. Satsuki smiles faintly and reveals that she's actually wearing a swimsuit. She says she knew nothing would happen today because he's still sorting out his feelings for Yukari. She then suggests that he ask her out during the cultural festival and teasingly tells him that her answer will be yes, and all he needs to do is just ask. Naoto panics at her boldness, realizing he now has less than 2 weeks to understand what he truly feels. Meanwhile, Yukari is also looking forward to the upcoming festival. During breakfast one morning, Tamayo notices Naoto's troubled face. She assumes he's worried about post-graduation plans, but Suzu points out that it's more likely about love. Tamayo advises him that whatever the problem is, it's best not to rush into things and to take everything one step at a time. Her words stay with him, and Naoto realizes he can't start something new with Satsuki if he still has lingering feelings for Yukari. After several failed attempts, Yukari finally manages to perfect the cookies she has been trying to bake, finishing them just in time for the school festival. She plans to confess to Naoto so they can start over again, and she hopes she isn't already too late. At school, the festival is already underway and visitors begin to filter through the many booths and attractions the students have prepared. Naoto's class is especially popular because Yukari is stationed at the entrance of their classroom. Suzu spots Shigenobu as he walks around the school, inviting people to their classroom. She compliments his appearance since it makes him look like a butler, and he explains his job before offering to escort her through the festival. Together, they head toward the booths. While they sit down for a drink, Shigenobu tells Suzu about the school's urban legend about how couples try to kiss during the after-party in hopes of staying together. Suzu feels the story sounds more like a curse, but is somewhat relieved, believing most high school students are mature enough not to take it seriously. Shigenobu tells her that many students still believe in it and even use the festival to confess their feelings. He is certain Yukari is one of the students gullible enough to be swayed by it. Still, he understands why people seek certainty in something as unpredictable as love. To him, love itself already requires a miracle because it is almost impossible for two people to feel the same way at the same time. Back in Naoto's classroom, Yukari and the first batch of servers finish their duties and are given a break. Yukari feels this is her chance to find Naoto and finally confess again. She worries, however, that he might refuse to reconcile since she knows Satsuki may have already made a move. One of her friends notices her clutching a bundle of cookies and asks if they are meant for someone. But Yukari is too preoccupied with imagining all the ways her plan could fail. The girls grow concerned and try to ask if she plans on confessing to someone. Meanwhile, Naoto is also on break and heads to the resting area of the classroom. From there, he overhears Yukari and her friends discussing who she might ask out during the festival. All of them assume it is Shigenobu and say they would fully support her if it were him. But Yukari quietly admits that the person she actually wants is Naoto. Naoto is shocked and slowly leaves the room while the girls continue gossiping about him. Eventually, Yukari becomes overwhelmed by their questions and runs away from her friends, only to bump straight into Naoto. She quickly hides the cookies and asks if he would like to walk around the festival with her. Before Naoto can answer, some of Yukari's fans notice her and start pestering her for photos. Naoto urges her to run away with him, and he spots some mascot masks they can use to hide. They duck into a corner. Once the coast is clear, Naoto suggests they move to another spot, but Yukari insists they stay where they are a little longer. Naoto feels confused by her words and asks what she meant earlier. Yukari explains that she had once believed being his girlfriend was bad for both of them because she felt even farther from him whenever they spent time together. Naoto apologizes for putting her in that position and suggests they return the mascot heads. Yukari tries to stop him, but the sudden movement causes their mascot heads to bump together, making it look like they kissed. At that moment, the owners of the costumes spot them and accuse them of stealing. The misunderstanding is cleared up and they return the costume pieces. However, as soon as they do, the men from earlier find them again. Naoto tries to get them to stop harassing Yukari, but he is easily pushed aside and knocked out. Fortunately, Satsuki and her teacher arrive. The teacher manages to scare most of the men off and drives the remaining few toward their class' haunted mansion. Satsuki stays behind to make sure Naoto is okay. She helps him up and brings him somewhere safe, while Yukari is called back to her classroom since her break time is done and she needs to serve people again. By the time Naoto wakes up, the sun is already setting. He sees Satsuki sitting by his bedside in the nurse's office. She explains that he was knocked out cold in the courtyard, so she brought him here to recover. Naoto notices her strange outfit, and Satsuki explains that she is dressed as a zombie nurse for the afternoon segment of the haunted house. Naoto then suddenly remembers he had been trying to defend Yukari. Satsuki reassures him that Yukari is safe with her class and that her teacher managed to chase away the men who were after her. Naoto immediately relaxes, relieved that Yukari is no longer being bothered. Satsuki looks disappointed and asks if he has anything to tell her. Naoto thanks her for helping him, but this only deepens her disappointment. She reminds him of his earlier promise that he owes her an answer. Naoto finally acknowledges it and admits that while he does love Satsuki, he cannot go out with her. Satsuki climbs on top of him and demands to know why they can't go out even though they both love each other. Naoto stops her advances and admits that he still loves Yukari as well. Meanwhile, Yukari wanders around the festival as the students are told to start preparing for the after party. Suzu spots her and runs over, but her stomach suddenly growls. She admits she had been hoping to eat with Naoto but hasn't been able to find him. Yukari hands Suzu her cookies and tells her to eat them. Suzu hesitates and guesses that the cookies were meant for Naoto, but Yukari insists she can always make more since she got the kiss she wanted from Naoto. Suzu accepts them happily, knowing Yukari won't mind. Back in the nurse's office, Naoto tries to explain that since he is in love with both Satsuki and Yukari, he can't go out with either of them. He plans to tell Yukari the same thing later. Naoto admits that while he was dating Yukari, he realized something about her. Even though she has many good qualities, she is also incredibly awkward. She tends to hold back on the things she wants because she always puts others first. Satsuki becomes offended for reasons she can't explain and tells Naoto to just date Yukari and keep seeing her behind Yukari's back. She promises she will never tell Yukari or brag about it. Naoto tries to argue but eventually tells Satsuki that he knows she's only trying to break the tension by joking about the situation. However, Satsuki insists she is completely serious and she doesn't mind being his mistress as long as she can stay connected to him. She believes going back to being childhood friends is no longer possible. She also knows that if Naoto refuses to choose either of them, he'll end up distancing himself from both, and she doesn't want that. Naoto tries to explain that nothing major will change since they still attend the same school and Suzu will always want to see her anyway. He tells her that he agonized over his answer, but this is the only solution he believes will be fair for all of them. Suddenly, an announcement echoes throughout the school telling everyone to gather in the courtyard for the after party. Satsuki eerily asks if Naoto knows the curse of the school festival. Without warning, she kisses him. When she pulls away, she tells him she would rather be hated by him than know he likes her but chooses not to be with her. She then leaves him alone with his thoughts. Students gather around the bonfire as the after party begins. Just as he told Satsuki, Naoto eventually tells Yukari about his feelings and explains that he cannot go out with her since he loves both Satsuki and her. Yukari breaks down in tears and runs away. Naoto heads home right after, surprising Suzu since he isn't enjoying the evening with his classmates. Suzu tells him the cookies on the table were from Yukari, and she didn't eat all of them because she believes Yukari intended to give them to him. Naoto feels guilty for making Yukari cry and tells Suzu she can have the rest because he probably doesn't deserve them anyway. He tells her he'll make dinner for them both. Later, he lies down and looks at the sky. He believes he made the right choice, yet guilt keeps gnawing at his heart. 3 days later, Yukari is at home moping to the point her mother remarks that she shouldn't skip school just because she broke up with a boy. Even Sho teases her for the same thing. Feeling insulted, Yukari moves to another part of the house to sulk. Her mother smiles at how spoiled she is acting. At school, Naoto notices that Satsuki has been attending school like usual, though the two of them have barely spoken since the festival. As Satsuki walks past him, he wonders if she might be done with him already and will never speak to him again. After school, Shigenobu receives a call from Shu. When he answers, Shu demands that Shigenobu make Naoto beg Yukari for forgiveness. He claims he saw Naoto cheating on Yukari with Satsuki and insists Naoto should apologize. He tells Shigenobu that Yukari will be at the park in 30 minutes and that Naoto should meet with her there. Yukari waits at the park, thinking she is meeting Shigenobu. Meanwhile, Shigenobu and Sho observe her from nearby. Sho complains that Naoto is taking too long, but is shocked when Suzu arrives instead. Shigenobu explains that Suzu is Naoto's sister and that Naoto forgot his phone, so Suzu volunteered to come in his place. Suzu gives Shigenobu 2 squash fruits as thanks for escorting her, then notices Shu noting that he is a new face. She also sees Yukari nearby and says she had wanted to give Yukari some squash, but given the situation with Naoto, now doesn't seem like the perfect time. Shu tries to tell Suzu about what he saw between Naoto and Satsuki, but Suzu continues talking about how she used to kick and whine every time Naoto got close to another girl. Suzu says she has grown since then, and now she knows better than to meddle in other people's love lives because it only causes more trouble. Sho suddenly feels attacked, realizing that is exactly what he is doing. Shigenobu calls her mature, and Suzu proudly explains that she is in 4th grade now, so she has to be. This only makes Shu feel worse since he is also in 4th grade. She then declares that she will support Naoto from the sidelines because that is how siblings show their love. Shigenobu pats Shu on the head, hoping he understands the message. Suzu surprises Shu by giving him the squash she meant for Yukari, saying she hopes he can enjoy it with Yukari. For a moment, Shu finds himself developing a crush on her. Suzu then runs home, leaving him flustered. Shigenobu decides he will walk Yukari home and tells Shu to run after Suzu to make sure she gets back safely as well. While walking Yukari home, Yukari asks about Naoto. Shigenobu simply says that Naoto has been attending school as usual. She then asks about Satsuki, but Shigenobu admits he hasn't seen much of her either. Yukari reflects on everything that has happened. The rejection hit her hard, yet she is even more shocked to learn that Naoto loved both her and Satsuki. She quietly wonders if Naoto truly made the right choice by choosing neither of them. Later that evening, Naoto returns home and Tamayo tells him that the old house he used to live in will soon be torn down. Naoto says it's fine since he and Suzu already collected everything, but Tamayo asks if they might have left their father's computer behind. Naoto remembers a laptop, though he isn't sure if it is still there. Tamayo insists she believes it is and tells him to retrieve it for her, even bowing her head to show how much it means to her. Naoto is stunned that Tamayo is directly asking him for a favor. He thinks back to the old house since it is the place where his family was last together and also where he first met Satsuki. Watari sits on the train heading back to his old home. He thinks about how his parents had sacrificed everything to raise him, and how he had been constantly reminded of that by their relatives. After his parents passed away, he and Suzu were passed from one family to another on his father's side, until they ultimately ended up with Tamayo, their father's sister. Tamayo had asked him to return to Shinshu to retrieve his father's laptop for her. She said the laptop was originally hers, but she had given it to his father before he left. Naoto originally planned to make the trip over the weekend, but Tamayo insisted he go the next day. She also said she would tell Rika, the landlady, that he would be stopping by to pick the laptop up. Returning to his old home, he realizes he is also doing this because he wants to ease the guilt he feels over rejecting both Satsuki and Yukari. As he stands near the front of the house, he notices Rika coming outside. He doesn't recognize her and assumes she might be a distant relative he has never met. Rika walks down the path without noticing him, so Naoto ignores her for now and focuses on finding the laptop for Tamayo. Inside the old house, he struggles to locate it. He checks the porch and wonders if he really left something so important behind. He tries to remember the last time he saw it. He recalls his father working on photos so they could send them out to be printed. One particular photo on that laptop was of him and Satsuki. Suzu had been very young then, and after getting jealous, she knocked the laptop out of their father's hands. Satsuki was upset at the time, but his father reassured her that the photo could easily be restored. After that incident, Naoto stopped seeing the laptop and couldn't recall what happened to it. Then he remembers seeing Rika earlier carrying a rectangular package about the size of a laptop. Since she left only moments ago, she should still be somewhere nearby. He heads back outside as rain begins to pour. He eventually spots Rika at the bus stop and approaches her. Before he can explain anything, Rika starts complaining about the rain and how she shouldn't let the package get wet. Naoto quickly drapes his jacket over her to shield her from the downpour. Rika pauses, looking at him, and says he reminds her of someone who used to show the same kind of kindness long ago. Naoto looks at her in confusion, and Rika asks whether he is the eldest son of the Watari family. She says she knew his father had children, but didn't expect Naoto to grow up resembling him this much. Her familiarity unsettles him, especially since she still hasn't explained how she knew his parents, and he had just seen her leaving his old home. A taxi arrives and Rika offers him a ride. Naoto accepts, deciding he can at least get a lift back to the station. During the ride, he begins thinking of ways to retrieve the laptop from her. He takes the chance to ask who she is, and Rika casually hands him her business card. She explains that she works at a girls' bar but is also a full-time university student. When Naoto reads her last name, he remembers it matches the landlady's. Rika confirms that she is the landlady's granddaughter and often helps her grandmother with the property. Naoto feels relieved since that explains why she was checking the house, but it still doesn't explain why she left with the laptop-sized package. For some reason, he ends up invited into her apartment. He decides it's the perfect chance to reclaim the laptop. When Rika returns with tea, he freezes mid-attempt to reach for the package. She notices how stiff he has become and decides to tease him, amused by how nervous he looks. Naoto insists he isn't trying anything inappropriate, which only makes her laugh. She says she'd only wanted to help him relax because he looks like a frightened puppy. She then offers him the rectangular package that he assumed was the laptop. It turns out to be nothing more than a fruit snack box. The disappointment hits him immediately. After some snacks and tea, Rika finally learns that Naoto had come looking for a laptop and had only assumed she was carrying it. She then asks whether he knows the girl who had approached her earlier, asking about the same laptop. She describes a high school student around his age who had lived in the house before his family moved in. Naoto realizes Rika is describing Satsuki, which leaves him confused about why she would want the laptop. Rika reassures him that the device had already been missing, and she would never have given it away without his family's permission. She adds that Satsuki seemed less interested in the laptop itself and more focused on something stored inside it. Naoto recalls that Satsuki knows an old photo of them is in the laptop, leaving him confused about her intentions. Rika asks if it's love-related, and though Naoto denies it at first, he begins to realize it might be. Seeing how troubled he is, Rika brings him to the girls' bar where he ends up telling his story to several waitresses. Rika scolds them for crowding him, then serves Naoto snacks and strawberry milk because he's underage. From what she heard, she assumed Naoto looked depressed because he was the one who got dumped, but she was mistaken when she heard the full story. When Naoto asks if choosing neither Satsuki nor Yukari was strange, Rika says it wasn't, but choosing one might have been better. Naoto explains he couldn't do that because choosing one means hurting the other, and he can't stand the thought of making one girl sad while he's happy with the other. Rika thinks it over and tells him he's probably just scared to choose, but she's sure he already has a girl he's more drawn to. Naoto becomes even more confused, insisting he loves them equally, but Rika claims she can already guess the one he prefers. Rika gets called away to another customer, leaving Naoto waiting. Tamayo calls, and Naoto admits he hasn't found the laptop, but will continue searching tomorrow. Tamayo says he can come home if it's really gone. She just wants to make sure something inside it never gets out. This makes Naoto curious, but she urges him to return soon. Rika returns drunk, and Naoto helps her sober up. Before he leaves, she asks if Tamayo is his dad's sister and shares how his father used to listen to her vent about her own love troubles. She remembers telling him about two boys who confessed to her and how she didn't want to ruin their friendship by choosing one. Naoto's father had advised her to simply pick someone because nothing is certain, feelings change, and the one she didn't choose would eventually find their own happiness. She followed his advice back then, but ended up breaking up with the boy she chose a week later. One day she asked what Naoto's father was always typing on his laptop, and he told her he emailed his younger sister Tamayo a lot because she would turn to him whenever she felt down. Naoto is shocked, having believed his father was completely cut off from the family after eloping. Rika smiles and says he must have stayed in contact with Tamayo in secret. His father once told her that he felt even closer to Tamayo after leaving home. Though their bond had physically broken, something new and more honest had formed between them. Rika tells Naoto to make decisions he truly believes in because there's always a chance everyone can find happiness in the end. Naoto returns home with snacks as souvenirs. He tells his aunt that the trip helped him sort out his feelings. When Tamayo gives him a confused look, he explains that the laptop was probably thrown out because Suzu broke the screen and it wasn't safe to keep around. He reassures her that no one will ever read the emails she exchanged with his father since the laptop is busted. Tamayo panics upon realizing Naoto knows about them, and he quickly runs off before she can question him. Alone in the bathroom, Naoto thinks about what he needs to do, knowing he finally has to act on the feelings he has always known. The next day, Shigenobu waits outside Satsuki's apartment. He's worried because she suddenly stopped replying to his messages. She had told him she would be moving, and he promised to keep it secret, but her silence made him uneasy. He remembers her saying she only wanted happy memories so she could keep going. She had visited her old home to retrieve a photo, but never found it, leaving her with nothing tangible of those moments. She'd insisted it was fine, that she already had enough memories and that she shouldn't keep wanting more. For some reason, Shigenobu tried asking Satsuki if they could start dating, but she bluntly turned him down. She admitted she didn't like him enough to go out with him, though she didn't dislike him either, since he was connected to Naoto, and she could never hate anything that made her think of Naoto. Something stirred within Shigenobu. He told her that from now on, instead of cheering on Yukari, he would give his full support to Satsuki. And this time, he planned to step in instead of just watching things play out. Satsuki wasn't sure what he meant, but decided to trust him with a favor. She asked him to prevent Naoto from seeing her, since she had decided she no longer wanted to see him. Naoto arrives at her apartment, confused to find Shigenobu in front of her door. Shigenobu plainly states that Satsuki had already moved. To prove it, he opens the door to show how deserted the apartment is. When Naoto asks when, Shigenobu says she moved last week, when the transfer papers were completed. Naoto asks why he hadn't told him, and Shigenobu admits that Naoto had never asked, and Satsuki had made him promise to keep it a secret. Naoto notices that Shigenobu refers to Satsuki by her first name. Shigenobu then casually mentions that he and Satsuki had also started going out, leaving Naoto utterly confused. Once Shigenobu leaves, Naoto enters the bare apartment. Looking around, he recalls his last conversation with Rika. He had asked her what she believed his heart would choose, and Rika had posed a scenario before answering. She had asked if he would save either Yukari or Satsuki, and that he could only save one and doom the other to drown with him. Naoto had admitted he didn't know, but a flash of Yukari's face had come to mind. Rika explained that the girl he had decided to save was someone very dear to him, while the girl doomed to drown with him was someone he depended on deeply. It wasn't until now that Naoto realized how important Satsuki had always been to him, and how much she had cared for him, even knowing she might drown because of him. Right now, all he wanted was to apologize to her. 3 months later, he is shopping with Makina. She notices his glum mood and coaxes him into a photo booth to cheer him up. Makina is proud of the photos, and Naoto smiles too, realizing how much girls must love capturing memories. Makina explains that it is natural because photos help people remember things. Naoto thinks back to why Satsuki had wanted that photo of them. He suspects that Satsuki might be back in her parents' inn and considers calling her, but fears hearing a rejection. The next day in class, some girls discuss the upcoming school trip. Rika calls him, explaining that his father had left a USB containing the photo of him and Satsuki. It had been at her grandmother's house but was misplaced until the year-end cleaning. She says the USB has been sent to his current residence. Naoto borrows Tamayo's laptop and printer to print the only photo he has with Satsuki. Looking at it, memories flood back, and he finally gathers the courage to call the inn. Yayoi answers and immediately recognizes him thanks to the inn's database. When Naoto asks about Satsuki, Yayoi admits she hasn't returned home yet, leaving him to wonder where she might be. Elsewhere, Satsuki prepares to leave, and her roommate reminds her to lock up properly before heading out. Naoto is reminded of how Satsuki had disappeared on him 6 years ago. Back then, he was sure she would eventually come by again, but she never did. He didn't stop hoping, but eventually time flew by. A year passed, and Satsuki became nothing more than a memory. Valentine's Day finally arrives, and Tamayo hands Naoto a present. Naoto thanks her, then asks if she's willing to sign some papers for him. She is shocked when she realizes the paperwork says that Naoto will not join the field trip. Naoto explains that he currently has no friends in class and would rather spend that day working. As he goes, Tamayo starts worrying that he's getting bullied. When he arrives at work, Makina is the first to greet him and give him chocolates. Naoto thanks her for going all the way to the restaurant when it isn't even her shift just to give him chocolates. He wonders why she couldn't wait for the party later, since she already agreed to attend the one Suzu is hosting with her friends. Makina brushes it off as no big deal, then quickly notices that Naoto is holding really expensive chocolates. Naoto is shocked to learn the price but tells her they're from his aunt. Makina is extremely relieved that the chocolates didn't come from Yukari or Satsuki, so she decides it's safe for her to leave and rest. Watching her go, Naoto thinks that Yukari would never give him chocolate after what he did to her. As for Satsuki, he has been trying to reach out to Shigenobu for details, but Shigenobu keeps ignoring his messages. After work, he sees Yukari waiting for him outside the restaurant. She hands him a box of chocolates, and Naoto suddenly feels overwhelmed with guilt. He tries to decline, saying he doesn't deserve them, but Yukari clarifies that these are chocolates meant for friends. She says she hopes they can reconnect and enjoy being friends in class despite what happened. She mentions the school trip and how she wants to make good memories with him. Naoto feels a weight lift off his shoulders and happily accepts the chocolates. Meanwhile, Shigenobu looks at his own box of chocolates from Yukari. He then glances at his phone where he has been trying to contact Satsuki, but she hasn't replied to any of his messages. He checks his other messages and wonders how he should respond to Naoto. His phone chimes and he is shocked to see a message from Satsuki. The surprise pushes him to send Naoto a request to meet the next day. The next day at the bookstore, Naoto feels uneasy because Shigenobu acts as if nothing happened, and as if they are simply out shopping. Shigenobu, however, maintains that Naoto was the one ignoring him first, and that he was always willing to hang out. Naoto grows frustrated. He only agreed to come because he wants to know where Satsuki is, but Shigenobu returns to browsing the books as if the question never mattered. Meanwhile, Yukari is also in the store trying on new underwear because her old ones no longer fit. When she steps out of the dressing room, she notices Shimada nearby. They chat briefly, and Shimada mentions seeing Shigenobu waiting for someone earlier. With the field trip coming up, she and Shimada decide to finish their shopping together. Shigenobu and Naoto stop for lunch, and Shigenobu finally admits he doesn't actually know where Satsuki is. Naoto is irritated but explains that he already knows Shigenobu and Satsuki are not dating. He had realized the two of them had made up the story to stop him from searching for her. Shigenobu confirms it and apologizes, and Naoto apologizes as well, knowing Shigenobu got dragged into his and Satsuki's issues. Shigenobu then reveals that although he doesn't know her location, Satsuki left him her new contact information before leaving. However, she never messaged him until the day before, only to say she intends to cut ties with him as well. Slowly, Naoto realizes that Satsuki is truly gone from his life this time. Elsewhere, Shimada and Yukari continue shopping, and Shimada admits she wants to know what really happened between Yukari and Naoto. Rumors claim Naoto cruelly dumped Yukari, but Shimada doubts this. She believes Naoto is a good person, especially after how kindly he treated her during the school festival. Yukari tells Shimada that she genuinely likes Naoto for his kindness. She admits that Naoto did dump her during the school festival, but she is certain he had his own reasons for turning her down. She gave him friendship chocolates yesterday, and when she realizes she is still hoping for something more, she begins to cry. Shigenobu and Naoto continue walking around the mall, and Shigenobu tries to convince Naoto to join the school trip. Naoto considers it, since he still has friends who want him there. Shigenobu asks if Yukari is still an option for him. Naoto explains that even if he still has feelings for her, he cannot bring himself to ask her out now when their friendship has repaired. They eventually notice Yukari and Shimada nearby and stop to talk with them. Yukari mentions that Sho was delighted with the chocolates he received from Suzu during the party yesterday. Naoto then notices that Yukari's eyes are slightly red, and Yukari tries to brush it off by rubbing them. The motion prompts Naoto to gently steady her face to keep her from irritating her eyes further, and the closeness leaves both of them blushing. Shigenobu and Shimada watch as the two quietly circle around their feelings. The next day at school, the teacher hands out the booklets for the school trip and announces that the destination is Okinawa. When they divide into groups, Shimada ends up as Naoto's group leader. Yukari and Shigenobu also fall into the same group, along with two other male classmates. Shigenobu informs Naoto that the group was arranged on purpose. He had asked Shimada to pair them together so Naoto and Yukari could show everyone that there is no lingering tension between them. By the end of the school day, Yukari spots Shigenobu thanking someone on the phone and grows curious. Naoto returns home and is startled to find Tamayo dressed in business attire. He assumes she might be planning to look for a job, but she mumbles something about visiting his school to make sure he isn't being bullied. He tells her that he has decided to attend his class's field trip. Tamayo drops the books she bought in shock, and Naoto notices that they are all self-help guides on how to handle adolescent and teenage boys. Embarrassed, she rushes back to her room. Naoto smiles a little, realizing he had worried her, and that she had been trying to find a way to help him. He has also noticed that Tamayo has begun opening up to him a little since the laptop incident. He begins packing for the school trip, carefully checking that he has everything he needs. He eventually picks up a photo of him and Satsuki and regrets not making it in time to give it to her. The next day, the class arrives safely in Okinawa, and they board the bus headed for their hotel. Yukari and Naoto end up sitting beside each other, and they fall into an easy, lighthearted conversation. They learn each other's birthdays for the first time, realizing that they had dated without even knowing something that simple. Naoto shyly admits that back then, he was so focused on staying composed around her that it became hard to open up or learn much about her. They both smile, now able to enjoy each other's company without pressure. Yukari then asks if Suzu had a hard time letting him go on the trip, but Naoto tells her that Suzu has been far less clingy lately. Yukari shares that Sho usually isn't as sweet toward her. Shimada looks back and offers them some candy, and a piece falls on Naoto's seat. He flusters when Yukari reaches for it. When the class arrives at the hotel, they receive instructions to head to their rooms. Yukari notices she dropped her phone and rushes back outside to look for it. Fortunately, Shigenobu found it earlier and is already on his way to return it. Yukari thanks him, then overhears a group of boys from another school commenting on how cute she is. She looks past them and spots Satsuki. Satsuki meets her gaze for a moment, then pretends she doesn't know her. Yukari and Shigenobu head back inside, and Yukari remarks that she didn't expect to see Satsuki in Okinawa. Shigenobu explains that he was also surprised at first. Yukari chooses not to press further, deciding to prioritize finding out whether Naoto knows that Satsuki is in Okinawa. Shigenobu reassures her that he doesn't, since he and Satsuki have already stopped communicating. A little later, while Shigenobu is alone in the public restroom, Satsuki corners him and demands an explanation. She had thought his trip was going to Kyoto and asks why he never informed him of the change. She even accuses him of planning this, pointing out that he didn't look surprised to see her at all. She then questions how he even figured out her new school when she never told him. Shigenobu calmly explains that she had actually left him a hint. Through social media, he checked which schools were headed to Okinawa, befriended students from those schools, and eventually discovered which one she belonged to. Satsuki inwardly recoils, realizing that his skill in tracking people is far beyond what she expected. She questions his motives again, believing that he should be on her side. He tells her that he still is and promises not to tell Naoto she's here. Satsuki cedes in frustration, deciding that all she needs to do is avoid Naoto during the evenings, since their schedules differ in the mornings. Shigenobu then asks why she truly wants to avoid Naoto. She simply declares that she doesn't want to see him before storming out of the restroom. The next day, Yukari tells Shimada that Satsuki is also in Okinawa. Shimada understands that Yukari is worried that Naoto and Satsuki might reunite if they cross paths, but reassures her that the island is large and the chances are slim. However, they run into Satsuki anyway. Fortunately, Naoto doesn't notice her, so Yukari and Shimada quickly lead him in another direction. It happens again at multiple locations throughout the day, and each time they manage to steer Naoto away before he spots her. But at the final spot, Naoto catches a brief glimpse of familiar hair. That evening, Satsuki confronts Shigenobu again, convinced he manipulated their schedules. Shigenobu admits that he arranged the timing to match her groups because he wants Naoto and Satsuki to finally talk. Satsuki insists there's no point, reminding him that she was rejected. Shigenobu counters that unfinished issues still remain and that Naoto still values her as his childhood friend. He also confesses that he wants Naoto and Yukari to get back together since their relationship is healthier now. Even so, he doesn't want Satsuki and Naoto to live with regrets, believing they both need closure so they can understand where they stand in each other's lives. At the next destination, Satsuki stays behind a little longer, observing Naoto and Yukari as they choose souvenirs. She assumes they are buying matching items for each other, unaware that the items are meant for their siblings. Satsuki slips away quietly, but Naoto feels her gaze and turns. He only catches her retreating figure. Everyone returns to the hotel that evening, enjoys the amenities, and then heads to bed. The next day, they visit an aquarium, and Shimada grumbles that they keep bumping into Satsuki's school. Shigenobu assures her that the other group will be leaving soon. Naoto returns to the group, and Yukari notices he seems unsettled. He tells her he's fine and mentions seeing an interesting fish near the entrance, inviting her to take photos with him. Once they are alone, Naoto admits that he thinks he saw Satsuki earlier. He explains that he believes his mind is playing tricks on him because he and Satsuki parted without resolving anything. Feeling guilty, Yukari finally admits that she knows Satsuki is in Okinawa. Naoto immediately bolts, running through the aquarium in search of her, desperate to see her one last time. He can't find her anywhere, so he calls out her name. Satsuki hears it but chooses to ignore him and walks straight toward her bus. Later that evening, some of the girls begin sharing the photos they took throughout the day. They notice Yukari appearing in several shots and are surprised to see that she looks sad. Since she's usually not visibly downcast, they start to worry about her. Yukari is by the beach, replaying the events that happened just a few hours before they return to the hotel. Naoto had become upset after realizing that she and Shigenobu both knew Satsuki was in Okinawa and didn't tell him. Shigenobu explained that he wanted Naoto and Satsuki to meet naturally, believing that if Naoto knew ahead of time, he would obsess over finding her and forget to enjoy the trip. Naoto didn't comment on the explanation and instead focused only on searching for Satsuki. Shigenobu managed to calm him down for a moment, reminding him that even though their itineraries overlapped, finding her would still be difficult now that Satsuki knew he was looking. Naoto ignored him and continued searching along the beach. Yukari worried as she watched him ask students from other schools if they had seen Satsuki. She chose not to tell him that she overheard some girls mentioning how Satsuki had pretended to be sick and stayed inside their bus to avoid the beach entirely. Now she wonders why Satsuki is going out of her way to run from him. Suddenly, two of their group mates rush toward her and Shimada, explaining that Naoto has gotten into trouble with another school. He was apparently caught trying to sneak into one of the girls' rooms, and the teacher is hoping Shimada can come retrieve him. The girls manage to bring Naoto back to his room, relieved that he gets away with just a warning since he never actually entered a room. He apologizes for the trouble and casually promises that next time he won't get caught. Shimada panics, realizing he hasn't learned anything and is still determined to see Satsuki before lights out. As Yukari grows increasingly worried, both Shimada and Shigenobu try to convince him to give up for now. Shigenobu explains that Naoto doesn't need to see Satsuki during this trip since they now know which high school she attends. Once they're back in Tokyo, Naoto can look for her properly, so he should focus on enjoying the trip while he can. Naoto insists that he has to see her here. He has waited before and it ended badly. Shigenobu explains that even if Naoto manages to sneak into Satsuki's room, she will have roommates. Suddenly, Yukari offers to help by going to Satsuki's room herself and bringing Satsuki out so Naoto can talk to her. Shimada is shocked that Yukari wants to help Satsuki, but Yukari explains that they only have a few days to enjoy the school trip with everyone. Right now, Naoto is too anxious about losing Satsuki, so if talking to her is what he needs to calm down, then she is willing to help him. Shimada decides to help too since Yukari is on board. Shigenobu then informs them that Satsuki has been feigning illness, so she's actually sleeping in a teacher's room. When they ask how he knows, he explains that he made a friend online from Satsuki's school. Shimada says it's actually easier this way if Satsuki is in a teacher's room. Yukari knocks on the door, and when the teacher answers, Yukari begs her to help her friend. She gestures towards Shimada, who is nearby pretending to be in pain. The teacher panics and rushes towards Shimada, and Yukari holds the door open so Naoto can slip inside. Shimada acts out a headache perfectly. The teacher insists on taking her to the infirmary, but Shimada claims she just needs to return to her room because she has the right medicine there. Yukari quietly tells Naoto that Shimada promised to buy him 30 minutes, then closes the door so he can talk to Satsuki. As Shimada continues to moan in fake pain, the teacher calls Yukari to help guide her to their room. Naoto enters the darkened room and calls out for Satsuki. He spots her on the bed, asleep and completely uncovered. He looks around for something to cover her, but pauses when he sees her face, feeling overcome with nostalgia. He admits softly that he misses her and apologizes for always relying too heavily on her. There were so many questions he wanted to ask, but he never found the right time. Suddenly, his phone vibrates. It's a message warning that the teachers are doing a surprise inspection, meaning he has only 5 minutes to get back to his room. He tries to wake Satsuki, but she won't wake up at all. He spots a pen nearby and quickly writes something before leaving the room. Naoto manages to get to his room on time, and Shigenobu also informs him that Yukari and Shimada are safely in their room. Naoto apologizes for the trouble he has caused the group. Shigenobu guesses that Naoto did manage to talk to Satsuki. Naoto confirms it, but thinks back to the note he left in Satsuki's hand. He hopes it will give him the chance he needs to talk to her. In the morning, Satsuki finds the note and learns that Naoto has the photo she's been looking for. Naoto and Shigenobu chat in their room, and Naoto realizes he forgot to put their room number and his phone number, so there's no way for Satsuki to respond to him. Shigenobu knew that Naoto would forget, so he made his own preparations to help him. Suddenly, Abe arrives at their door and Shigenobu introduces him as his online friend from Satsuki's high school. Abe hands Naoto a letter from Satsuki, but Naoto gets disappointed when Satsuki only states she wants the photo. Naoto decides to head back to her room, but Abe advises him not to. It was found out that a student from a different school tried to sneak into a teacher's room last night, so his school is on high alert. He warns that if Naoto even tries to go to their floor, he will get caught. He tries to offer to hand the photo over, but Naoto refuses, instead deciding to write Satsuki another message. Abe delivers the message to Satsuki and complains that they could just use their phones, but Satsuki reasons that she didn't bring hers. As she reads the letter, her roommates complain about her letting Abe inside while they were changing. In a letter, Naoto tells her that he will only give the photo in person. Abe returns to Naoto's room a little later with a note from Satsuki asking Naoto to just give the photo to Abe. Abe eventually gets sent back to Satsuki's room, where the girls scold him for constantly visiting. In Naoto's note, he asks if he can see her for a bit, but Satsuki still refuses, writing that their school is leaving in the afternoon. Abe and Shigenobu explain their schedules, which leaves almost no avenue for Satsuki to meet with Naoto. Shigenobu apologizes for the circumstances but tells Naoto to give up for now. Naoto inwardly panics. He's aware he can give Abe his contact information for Satsuki to take, but there's no guarantee that she will ever meet him or if they can salvage whatever relationship they have left. He sends Abe to Satsuki's room one last time, and the girls blush as they read Naoto's final note because in it, Naoto promises to find a way to meet her. Satsuki gets ready to board the bus for their next location, her eyes constantly drifting to the hotel doors, expecting to see Naoto, but he doesn't appear. During the bus ride, she holds on to his note, knowing it's almost impossible for them to meet. Yukari notices that Naoto and Shigenobu are missing from their location, and their other groupmates inform them that the two had left the bus ahead of everyone to get inside the castle. Yukari and Shimada make their way there and spot them, but when Yukari approaches who she thinks is Naoto, she realizes it's someone else. Meanwhile, Satsuki's class is at a different site and are given time to walk around before boarding their bus again. Satsuki stops by an aquarium where she's approached by someone she assumes is Abe. However, it turns out to be Naoto wearing Abe's clothes. Satsuki feels annoyed at Naoto's insistence on talking to her. Her roommates then call out to her, inviting her to join them for souvenir shopping. But they pause after spotting Naoto, confused as to why Abe is there. Before Naoto gets exposed, Satsuki pushes him aside and tells her roommates she's heading back to the bus to get her scarf. Once they are far enough, Naoto insists that Satsuki visit a place with him. Meanwhile, Yukari learns about Abe's involvement. Abe admits that he's doing all this for Shigenobu and that it seemed fun to switch places with Naoto for the day. Yukari grows increasingly worried because Abe is risking suspension, but Abe says he doesn't mind since he's repeating the year anyway. Shimada joins them and offers Abe a canned drink. Abe shares that the only one taking a real risk in this situation is Naoto. He says he understands though because Naoto clearly wants to see Satsuki. Shimada gets annoyed at Abe for bringing up their complicated situation in front of Yukari, so Abe runs back to Shigenobu and asks if something is going on between Yukari, Naoto, and Satsuki. Shigenobu is surprised Abe figured it out, and Abe explains that he plays a lot of dating sims, so he's familiar with these kinds of situations. He then asks if Naoto is going after Satsuki, and Shigenobu confirms it, but adds that Satsuki's route is hard to clear. Abe asks if Shigenobu is helping because he enjoys treating everything like a game. Shigenobu agrees that it's about 90% of the reason, but the remaining 10% is because he wants his friends to find their real partner. Naoto brings Satsuki to a field of sunflowers and hands her their photo. He asks if she went to their hometown to look for it. Satsuki shares that she wanted the photo as a memento, and that if she'd gotten it earlier, she would have been fine without ever revealing that she loved him. She admits she somehow made things worse for him, and she worried he wouldn't find his happiness if she stayed by his side. She adds that she was never mad at him for not choosing her or Yukari. Naoto immediately feels guilty. He tells her that he always depended on her to remain by his side, no matter what he did. He apologizes for taking her for granted. Satsuki tells him to go back to Yukari, but Naoto explains that he won't, since he and Yukari agreed to remain friends. He quickly realizes how wrong that sounds, since it seems like he is treating Satsuki as a rebound. He desperately tries to correct himself, only to make it sound worse. The more he talks, the more tangled his words become, so he finally blurts out that she is extremely important to him. But even that comes out awkward, and he panics, aware he might lose her again. Satsuki steps closer and admits she is happy he risked so much just to see her. She leans against him, and Naoto almost believes they are about to kiss until she stops and steps back. She explains that she understands the lengths he took, but she also took many risks just to get away from him. She tells him to give her more time to figure things out, and that if he kisses her the next time they meet, she will believe he is serious about her. Naoto is shocked and asks if they can meet back in Tokyo. Satsuki doesn't answer the question directly, instead asking for his phone. She tells him to stand closer to the flowers and snaps a picture of him with his phone. She sends the photo to her own number so they can stay in contact. Naoto asks why they couldn't take a picture together, and Satsuki says that maybe someday they will. She begins to play with one of the flowers, and Naoto can't help but smile, because it reminds him of how she used to be when they were younger. He smiles warmly at her, comforted by the thought that they will see each other in Tokyo someday. A week passes, and Naoto decides to call Satsuki since she has never replied to any of his messages. Satsuki explains that she has to worry about school and work, but Naoto complains that he does too, and that he is actually on his way to work. Satsuki says she is also at work and tells him her next free time is tomorrow from 5 to 7. Naoto smiles, relieved that this means he can see her soon. He tells her he'll make time to visit and asks where she's working. Instead of answering, Satsuki tells him she needs to get back to work. Naoto feels a little disappointed that their conversations are always short. During the school trip, he learned where Satsuki studies and that she lives in a dorm in Yokohama. He feels happy knowing that tomorrow will finally be the day he gets to see her again. Meanwhile, Shimada holds a meeting with Yukari and her other friends about Yukari's love life. The girls ask if it is true that Yukari had gotten her heart broken and whether Naoto and Satsuki are currently dating. Shimada answers as honestly as she can. Yukari demands to know what Shimada is planning, especially since they are talking about her love life in Naoto's workplace. She tries to leave, but Shimada insists that Yukari should at least get a drink. They head to the drink bar, and Shimada tells Yukari that she might as well be honest with her feelings. There are rumors going around, so it is better for Yukari to clear things up. Yukari tells her that it is difficult when her heart feels broken. She admits she feels strange about everything because she was the one who told Naoto they should go back to being friends, and she was the one who helped him get the chance to talk to Satsuki. Now that they are friends again, she realizes she has fallen even more in love with Naoto. Shimada understands how complicated her situation is, so she tells Yukari that if she still loves Naoto, then her heart isn't broken. She tells Yukari there is nothing wrong with being in love and that she should continue her days feeling confident. Yukari and Shimada return to their friends, and Yukari decides to tell them about her problems. The girls feel relieved that Yukari is willing to share and that they all have similar struggles. Yukari tells them she has been dealing with a lot, but once she feels better about herself, she plans to pursue Naoto again. The girls are happy that Yukari is opening up and seems to be in better spirits. Shimada says that to help Yukari, they will have regular meetings for the CUI committee. Yukari questions the name, and Shimada explains that it stands for Cheer Up Ishihara and declares that their next meeting should be at a cake buffet. As the girls cheer, Naoto notices them and feels relieved that Yukari and the others are enjoying themselves. His boss then calls him over and tells him that Makina will be quitting her job. Naoto assumes track practice must be getting difficult, but the boss explains that she never discussed the details. He adds that Makina seems on edge and he is getting worried. To ease his concerns, Naoto offers to stop by her dorm after work. He keeps his promise, but just as he is about to enter, Makina comes running out, slamming the door in his face in the process. Before he can process what is happening, someone else rushes out as well, chasing after Makina. Naoto then spots Makina's older sister nearby. He introduces himself and explains that he used to be in Makina's middle school track team. Makina's sister's eyes light up when she recognizes Naoto from the sticker photos in Makina's room, and she assumes the two are going out. Later, Makina is caught, and Naoto informs Makina's team captain that Makina's sister has already left from her hotel but promised to return tomorrow to bring Makina home. He then tells Makina that her sister explained everything to him. He asks why she's been skipping track practices and whether it is true that she plans to quit the team. According to her sister, Makina will be transferred back to a school in her hometown. Makina's team captain explains that Makina had expressed her desire to stay at their current university, but since she entered through an athletic scholarship, she can't maintain it while skipping practices. Makina's sister came to persuade her that returning home is what's best for everyone. The team captain decides to leave Makina with Naoto so they can talk. Once they are alone, Naoto asks Makina why she lied to her sister about dating him. Makina begins to cry as she explains that she hoped her sister wouldn't worry if her supposed boyfriend was someone familiar. She had tried to use him as an excuse to stay in Tokyo, but her sister still insisted she return home. She begs Naoto for help, and unable to handle seeing a girl cry, he agrees to assist however he can. Makina brightens a little, then asks him to be her boyfriend for one day. She explains that she wants to make good memories in Tokyo before leaving because she knows that no matter how big a tantrum she throws, she won't be allowed to stay. Her mood lifts even more as she says she'll tell her sister that she needs one more day to spend time with Naoto. Before he can mention that he has to see Satsuki tomorrow, Makina is already running back to her dorm. Later that evening, Naoto explains the situation to Satsuki. She tells him that he can always spend time with Makina until 5 p.m. and they can meet up afterward. She adds that there's no reason for him to feel guilty since they aren't going out. She even says she's sure that Makina truly loves him. The next day, Naoto and Makina meet in front of a theme park. Makina is excited about the day but quickly scolds Naoto for looking gloomy. Makina says she wants to ride the Ferris wheel, which makes Naoto panic because he keeps thinking about what Satsuki said. If Makina really does love him, being in an enclosed space with her feels like a bad idea. Makina misreads his hesitation as fear of heights and teases him. She then suggests that since he's scared of heights, they should skip the amusement park. She turns away from it and looks back at him, suggesting they get a drink since she's thirsty. Naoto relaxes a little, thinking that if Satsuki is wrong, Makina is actually pleasant company. He points toward a vending machine, but Makina insists on going somewhere nicer. He agrees, deciding that for today he'll indulge her. They stop at a cafe, and Makina asks why they decided to explore Yokohama today. Naoto explains that he has plans in the evening in Yokohama. Makina guesses he's meeting someone, then tells Naoto that for today, he should call her by her first name. When he visibly panics, Makina reminds him that today is supposed to be a date, so they should call each other by their first names. Seeing no point in arguing, he calls her Makina, which immediately embarrasses her. Naoto watches her rush ahead and starts thinking about how all of her actions leading up to this day strongly hint at her feelings. They end up at the pier, and Naoto decides to ask about the boy Makina once mentioned having a crush on. Makina is shocked he brought it up. She tries to brush it off by saying that if he remembers, it must mean he's interested in her. Naoto gently corrects her, saying he's more worried about how she's doing with her team. If she were a little more honest with him, he would have been willing to listen to her struggles. She finally sits beside him and leans on his shoulder. She admits she wanted to confess something since today might be their final day together, but then she realized she doesn't want today to be their last. Naoto suggests apologizing and going back to practice, but Makina snaps that she doesn't want a solution. Naoto then asks why she started skipping practice. They begin walking again, and Makina tells him that after entering high school, she met people better than her. Her progress plateaued, and she started skipping practice because she felt she wasn't improving. She says she had no one she could talk to, recalling how the girls on her team would talk behind her back. Naoto asks if she regrets giving up track. Makina says she does, but doesn't see the point if she isn't even winning. She then blurts out that she has more regrets with him than with running. Naoto panics as she asks if he is seeing anyone. When Naoto says he isn't, she asks if they can start seeing each other. Naoto explains that he is actually meeting someone important to him after their date, and Makina asks if it happens to be Satsuki. Naoto confirms it, but adds that he and Satsuki aren't dating. He admits he likes Satsuki, so he cannot see Makina as anything more than his junior. Makina feels embarrassed and announces that she's going to run away from him. Naoto tries to stop her, but she's already bolting off. He looks at the time and realizes he needs to go see Satsuki, but he can't leave Makina. Meanwhile, Satsuki arrives at the station, hoping Naoto will show up. Naoto races after Makina, and she keeps trying to lose him. Because of her shoes, she ends up tripping. As they catch their breaths, Naoto comments that he's surprised at how fast she is in heels. After calming down, Makina admits that she feels better after running. She thanks him for chasing after her, even though he needed to go somewhere, then confesses that she loves him. Later, Naoto rushes into the station. He is 40 minutes late and worries he may have ruined his chances with Satsuki. He checks his messages and learns that Satsuki has just arrived and is waiting. He heads toward the area, thinking back to Makina after he rejected her. She had taken it well and added that even if they aren't together, she hopes he'll still visit her and give her advice from time to time. Arriving at the location, he spots Satsuki, and even though she claims she just arrived, he can tell she has been waiting for a while because of the snow on her clothes. Naoto gives Satsuki his scarf, then recalls the promise he made to kiss her the next time they meet. He tries to cup her face, but she ducks to tie his shoes. When she notices how nervous he is, she teases him about the kiss he promised. Naoto complains that if they're going to kiss, the mood has to be right. They decide to head to the roof, and Satsuki leans on his arm so they look more like a couple. Naoto comments that he can feel her heartbeat, and Satsuki immediately lets go, embarrassed that her nervousness is showing. To hide it, she asks if Makina confessed to him. Based on his reaction, she already knows the answer, so she asks if he's dating Makina. Naoto denies it, saying he wouldn't be here with her if he was. He's about to kiss her to prove his feelings, but then he notices a strange sound. Satsuki apologizes and explains it's her curfew alarm. Naoto decides to walk her back since he'd always see her another time. During the walk, Satsuki shares that she plans to take over her adoptive parents' inn and chose her current school because it teaches the skills she'll need. She knows now Izumi won't run the inn, and her parents are worried. Naoto says his plan still involves taking care of Suzu, and that Tamayo is willing to let them stay even longer, but he admits he has no clear future goal. When they reach her dorm, Naoto apologizes for being late. Satsuki admits she worried he wouldn't show up, but was incredibly happy when he did. As she smiles at him, Naoto suddenly feels overwhelmed and pulls her into a hug. He leans in to kiss her, but Satsuki looks down to avoid it and mentions the security cameras. When he steps back, she says they're probably fine since no one likely noticed, then quickly retreats to her dorm. Naoto watches her go and wonders if what she did counts as a rejection. Naoto meets his friends for a study session, but he ends up telling them how Satsuki rejected his kiss when they met. Shigenobu and Abe think he's overthinking it and assume Satsuki was probably just embarrassed about him taking the lead. Their classmates scold them for chatting when they should be studying. Abe tells Naoto that he'll study hard too, even though he's still gaming as he says it. He adds that he plans on passing this time so he can have a great life with a real-life beautiful girl. He doesn't mention that he's developed a crush on Yukari. Shigenobu grabs Abe's gaming console and tells him to focus if he's serious. As time passes, Naoto tries to study but admits he's stuck on a problem. Shigenobu explains it's because Naoto only memorized the formula and doesn't actually understand how it works. Naoto spaces out, thinking about his situation with Satsuki. After hearing her talk about her future, he feels like he understands her a little more, but he wishes she'd be more open instead of leaving him guessing all the time. Shigenobu lightly hits him with a book, scolding him for zoning out. Seeing that Naoto won't focus, he suggests that Naoto just calls Satsuki. Naoto sends a message inviting Satsuki to eat with him once finals are over. Satsuki blushes at the message. She feels the need to apologize about the other day but decides not to bring it up. When Naoto sees her reply and notices it only says meet, he lights up, thinking he really was just overthinking everything. With his worries gone, he feels energized and ready to do his best on the exams. The exams fly by quickly, and before anyone realizes it, the last day ends. The teacher reminds the class to submit their career forms by next week. Shigenobu and Naoto leave the classroom and run into Yukari and Shimada, who want to talk about their career plans with them. Shigenobu shares that he plans to go to a cheap public school so he can become a government worker. Shimada enthusiastically says she wants to become an event producer. She even already has a producer named ready, since she doesn't feel like going to school after high school. Naoto encourages Yukari to talk about her plans, and she admits she doesn't have anything concrete yet. Her parents have encouraged her to try becoming a nurse or a flight attendant. Naoto thinks she would fit those roles well, and she tells him she plans to go to college just to make sure. Naoto admits that he originally planned to join the workforce right after high school, but now he isn't so sure about that plan anymore. Yukari invites him to join her for some campus tours, reassuring him that they won't be alone since they're only friends now. Naoto smiles at her kindness and promises to discuss it with Tamayo before heading off ahead of them. Once he's out of earshot, Shigenobu and Shimada ask if Yukari is really over Naoto. She suddenly becomes depressed and denies it. She admits that she just got so happy that they could talk normally again that she couldn't help herself. When Naoto arrives home, he tells Tamayo about the situation and she immediately tells him to go to college. She says she'll support him, but in exchange, he has to do all the housework and pay her rent. She also mentions that his father actually left behind some money for them, which surprises Naoto, because he had assumed all of it had been taken by their other relatives. He admits he has been saving up since he originally planned on moving out with Suzu after he graduates, but Suzu quickly complains and says she wants to stay with Tamayo forever. Hearing how fond Suzu is of their current life, Naoto agrees to Tamayo's terms so they can stay longer. Tamayo says she's completely fine with it since they take care of all the cooking and cleaning, leaving Naoto wondering how she even managed to live on her own before they arrived. With the matter settled, Tamayo returns to her room to sleep while Suzu announces she's going out to play with Renan, leaving Naoto alone. He notices there are many scholarship options available, so he tells himself he needs to stay optimistic. Then he receives a call from Satsuki. She tells him she is nearby and wants to stop by his place. Surprised, he agrees to wait for her. When he hangs up, he feels a warm rush knowing Satsuki is taking the initiative to see him. After a while, Satsuki arrives and Naoto prepares tea for her. She admits she came straight from school because she wanted to see his face. Since Naoto just finished his exams, she assumes he must be tired and tells him she can head home now because she already got to see him. Panicking at how quickly she plans to leave, Naoto offers to cook for her, then realizes she might not even be hungry. Satsuki smiles and admits she actually skipped lunch today, making Naoto happy that he can at least feed her. He immediately gets to work in the kitchen and soon a variety of dishes are set in front of them. Naoto admits that he only used vegetables from the garden and whatever protein they had in the fridge, so he isn't sure about the taste. Satsuki reassures him that the food is good and they both quickly finish their meal. Right after, Satsuki decides to look at the garden. She notices that the vegetables are thriving and that there is a wide variety. Naoto tells her that Suzu, Renan, and Sho are planning on running a self-serving vegetable stand during the summer. They sit down for some drinks and Satsuki mentions that it looks like Naoto no longer needs her. Naoto insists that she continue to visit him because Suzu really misses her. Satsuki then notices the booklet about the campus tours Naoto is browsing. Naoto admits that since he doesn't know what to do after high school, he is considering college as an option. Satsuki warms up since Naoto is thinking about his future and is about to tell him something. But then she notices that the booklet is actually Yukari's. Naoto explains that he got the booklet from Yukari, but it doesn't mean anything. Satsuki says that it's fine because she has no right to feel jealous when she isn't even Naoto's girlfriend yet. Suddenly, she asks if Naoto would like to try kissing her now. Naoto is shocked since this seems to come out of nowhere. Satsuki wonders if he's not in the mood, so she decides to undo certain parts of her uniform and climbs on his lap. Naoto feels that something is off and asks if something has happened to her. Satsuki ignores his question, inviting him to try and kiss her. Naoto refuses and says that he's aware she isn't feeling too well and they shouldn't kiss or do anything when they aren't in the right headspace. Satsuki starts to look sad and asks if she's not attractive or if Naoto no longer needs her. Naoto's eyes widen and he immediately envelops Satsuki in a hug and says that he will always need her. Even as she leans into the hug, she calls him a wimp and a coward. Naoto accepts the insults as he continues to hold her, telling Satsuki that he wants to understand her, so they should talk. Meanwhile, Yukari and Shimada bid farewell to their friends after they finish visiting a cake buffet. As they walk to the station, Yukari feels like she has gained 5 kilograms, so Shimada suggests that she work with her in events. Since it's physical labor, she'll be able to lose the weight. Yukari agrees, saying she's been wanting to get some job experience anyway. She then sees a figure in the crowd that resembles Naoto. As she stares, she wonders if she's beginning to see things. She realizes she is still hung up on him, and Shimada tries to cheer her up by insisting that if they end up in the same college, Yukari can always have another chance. Naoto is actually there now, waiting to board the train. He remembers his conversation with Satsuki at his place. Satsuki had told him that Naozumi and Yayoi would be getting married. Naoto is surprised to learn that they were in a relationship but is happy for them regardless. Satsuki had said that because of their marriage, she no longer needed to take over the inn. Naoto is confused because he had thought Satsuki was first in line to inherit it, but Satsuki insists that it is fine since she no longer wants to be a nuisance to her family. She then announced that she would head home. Before she left, she apologized for avoiding his kiss the other day, admitting that she was scared of accepting his feelings. She used to be confident she could do it spontaneously, but ended up chickening out at the last minute. She claims to be the real coward in their situation since she is scared of being hopeful and then being let down. After Satsuki left, Naoto realized the source of all her recent erratic behavior and vowed to help her. When Tamayo wakes up, she asks about dinner, and Suzu tells her that Naoto already prepared it for them and even left a note saying he will be back tomorrow. Naoto finally arrives at the inn and is greeted by Yayoi, who says she was expecting to see him sooner or later and that his visit is most likely because of Satsuki. She invites him for a chat in the staff dorms after her shift. When they arrive at the dorms, Naoto explains the situation to Yayoi and Naozumi. Naozumi clears up the misunderstanding, saying he has no intention of taking over the inn even after he gets married, but Hiroko spoke to Satsuki as if he would. Yayoi explains that Hiroko felt remorseful and hasn't cleared things up with Satsuki. Naoto says that aside from the inheritance issue, he also noticed that Satsuki seems unstable and he doesn't know how to help her. Naozumi understands and concludes that Naoto has finally realized his true feelings for Satsuki. Yayoi excuses herself so Naozumi and Naoto can talk privately. Once she leaves, Naozumi shares that Satsuki's real mother once lived and worked at the inn. He admits he found her strange because after her shifts, she would immediately leave Satsuki so she could go off and play around until one day she simply never came back. Naozumi became responsible for Satsuki's care after that, and at one point he asked if she had other relatives. Satsuki couldn't answer because she didn't know, but said she knew where her old house used to be. She brought him to the property where Naozumi spotted Naoto and asked if Satsuki knew him or if he was a relative. Satsuki said she didn't and grew curious about Naoto since he now lived in her old house. So she eventually walked closer to him until he finally noticed her. Naoto realizes that Naozumi's story leads to the day he and Satsuki first met. Naozumi continues, sharing that he brought Satsuki over to play with Naoto every day that summer. He remembers the sadness on her face when he told her she couldn't visit anymore once summer ended. Naoto realizes that on the day they faked running away together, Satsuki already understood that they wouldn't see each other if she went home. Without knowing it, he had made her hope for a future together. Naozumi notices the depressed look on Naoto's face and grabs his hands, saying they need a change of pace. He offers Naoto a ride home since it's already very late. As they drive, he muses that he should visit Satsuki since they're close by and invites Naoto to join him, but Naoto refuses. Naozumi asks whether Naoto wants to avoid Satsuki after hearing her past, but Naoto insists that it isn't the case at all. Naozumi then tells him that Satsuki failed to maintain a relationship with her parents, which is supposed to be the first relationship anyone has. The only stable connection she ever had was with Naoto. Naozumi admits he could have been kinder to her, but says he simply didn't find Satsuki cute when they were kids. This makes Naoto blurt out that Satsuki was cute as a child and she's cute now. Naozumi laughs and is on his feelings. They reach Naoto's city by morning and Naozumi is stunned by how cold it is. As they watch the sunrise, Naoto decides he will try talking to Satsuki one last time. He will confess and then leave the rest up to her. Even if she can't give him an answer right away, he is willing to wait as long as it takes because he also kept Satsuki waiting. Once Naozumi arrives in Yokohama, he meets Satsuki in a restaurant and explains that Hiroko had worded things in a way that made it seem like he was going to take over the inn, even though that was never his intention. He also mentions that during the drive home, Naoto kept talking about her. Naozumi teases that she must be really important to Naoto, but he has to leave since Yayoi keeps calling him. 1 week later, Yukari meets Abe and Shimada in front of a karaoke place in Yokohama. Yukari notices they are early, so the others haven't arrived yet. Shimada says that Shigenobu is already inside. Inside the private room, Shigenobu greets Satsuki, who happens to be working there. Satsuki stiffens with irritation, so Shigenobu explains that he had nothing to do with choosing this place. Abe had a discount coupon and their class decided to celebrate together, especially since Abe joined their study groups. Shigenobu then tells her that Naoto isn't coming because he took extra shifts at the restaurant. Satsuki immediately sighs and Shigenobu catches the reaction, asking why she and Naoto still aren't dating. Satsuki accuses him of plotting something, but he denies it, saying he no longer wants to interfere with anyone's relationships. He has been thinking about everything since the school trip and now believes there were better ways he could have handled things if he were in Naoto's position. In the end, he realizes he was just being a backseat critic and that Naoto actually came up with the best possible outcome. He says he isn't in a hurry for romance either and wants to take things step by step, so he hopes Satsuki can do the same and keep moving forward. Satsuki becomes frustrated and insists she also wants to move forward, but doesn't need to be rushed by everyone. She slams the door on him, leaving Shigenobu confused. Outside, she suddenly comes face to face with Yukari and immediately runs. Yukari is startled but chases after her. Yukari and Satsuki end up on the balcony, both out of breath. Yukari asks why Satsuki is running away from her, and Satsuki admits she thought Yukari would yell at her. Yukari tells Satsuki that it's childish to run away just by assuming she would yell at her. Swallowing a lump in her throat, Yukari admits that she is mad, especially since she was the one who confessed first and even dated Naoto. She admits she had plenty of unpleasant thoughts about Satsuki when she suddenly entered Naoto's life, but lately she has realized something. When Yukari confessed, Naoto had rejected her. She was the one who suggested their trial relationship, but in the end, she mistrusted him and pushed him away because of her own fears. She now understands that their relationship failed because of her. Naoto had been a good boyfriend despite her insecurities, and she also realized she was never someone Naoto truly needed. Even without Satsuki, their relationship was doomed to fall apart. And right now, Naoto clearly only has eyes for Satsuki. Satsuki says Yukari is being dispassionate, but Yukari insists she's doing better now. She has a goal and friends she can rely on. She even mentions that Naoto turned down her invitation to campus tours. Knowing that Satsuki and Naoto aren't officially together yet, Yukari asks if Satsuki has doubts of her own or if she doesn't trust Naoto. Satsuki admits she trusts him, but her reasons are something neither Yukari nor Naoto would understand. Looking up at the sky, she confesses that she does love him, but she isn't sure she can love him the way he deserves. When Yukari returns to the karaoke room, she feels miserable, realizing she has no chance against Satsuki. She ends up yelling her frustrations into the mic, with Shimada cheering her on. In the locker room, Satsuki quietly reads a message from Naoto. He wants to meet next week and is willing to go to Yokohama. She replies that she wants to see him. On the day of their meeting, Suzu is surprised to see Naoto dressed for school during spring break. Naoto explains he has committee work and plans to meet someone afterward. Suzu offers to go with him, but he refuses, saying it's an important meeting. Seeing the determination in his eyes, Suzu wishes him luck, knowing it must be serious. At school, the committee finishes cleaning up the venue. As Naoto and another member store the props, Shimada video calls them, thanking them for picking up the slack while she and Yukari are busy working on events. They note that she seems to be having fun while Yukari panics in the background, since she didn't think she would be participating in the auditions. Shimada ignores her and bids Naoto and her other friend goodbye. They note that Yukari seems to have changed since she started spending more time with Shimada. Kumahara suddenly bursts into the room, informing Naoto that there are still many decorations in the gym. Naoto immediately heads toward the gym. His friend is about to help, but Kumahara tells him to go home instead. Meanwhile, Naoto sprints to the gym, checking the time he has left to clean up. He wants to set things right with Satsuki and properly confess to her. Naoto reaches the gym and notices that it is already clean. He then sees another door creak open and suddenly a bunch of soccer balls roll inside. He looks outside and is shocked to see Satsuki in her old school uniform. Naoto wonders why she came all the way from Yokohama when they agreed to meet there, and why she decided to sneak around school wearing her old uniform. She explains that Kumahara was the one who caught her, but he promised not to tell anyone after she explained her reason for being here. When Naoto asks how she convinced Kumahara, she says she simply copied what he did during the school trip. Naoto remembers his confession during the trip and finally tells her that he loves her, and that he wants to go out with her with the goal of eventually having a family together. He says that he has been thinking about her a lot and realizes that Satsuki probably doesn't need a childhood friend or a boyfriend as much as she might need a family to ground her. He continues by saying that Satsuki already has many great friends, but he wants to be someone she can lean on in the future. Satsuki nervously asks if he is serious and if he is really okay with her. Naoto confirms that he is, and when Satsuki closes her eyes, the two of them finally share a kiss. Satsuki breaks away slightly to look at Naoto and becomes nervous when she notices him staring at her intently. Naoto apologizes and lets go, but she gets upset and insists that he keep holding her, and they lean in for another kiss. After they leave school, Naoto waits by the bridge, suddenly feeling a bit tired since he used up all his courage in the kiss and confession. Satsuki returns, now wearing her current school uniform. Naoto offers to walk her back to her dorm, but Satsuki turns him down since the sun hasn't completely set yet. They both confess that they might not be able to see each other for a while. They are surprised that they are thinking the same thing and wonder about the reason. Naoto explains that he decided to follow his original plan and will join the workforce instead of going to college. He reveals that he plans on becoming a cook, and Satsuki brightens at the idea that Naoto can make a lot of delicious food for her in the future. He explains that he even managed to convince Tamayo that his plan is the best option for him. Satsuki reassures him that she is sure Naoto will do great as a cook, and that she will volunteer as his taste tester. He then explains that he wants to start gaining experience right away, so he began working at a European restaurant near his current house. He shares that it was actually their boss from the Chinese restaurant who recommended the place where he currently works. He explains they probably cannot meet often because he has training, which means he has 5 shifts a week, and with spring break ending, he also needs to attend school. He worries about how they will navigate their relationship, but he is cut off when Satsuki suddenly kisses him. She lets him go and suggests that they kiss a lot before they part. Naoto becomes embarrassed, and Satsuki tells him that she isn't worried because she trusts him. She playfully turns and tells him to at least walk her partway. Naoto looks at her fondly. He knows that if it is Satsuki, she can handle the long distance, but he reminds himself to stay in check because he was the one who took her for granted before. As they walk, Satsuki shares that she plans on going to college. She has taken a liking to learning, and Hiroko said she can think about what she wants to do after college. Naoto smiles and expresses his relief since it seems Satsuki is getting along with her family now, which Satsuki credits to his meddling. Satsuki offhandedly mentions that after next month, she has to look for a place for herself because she can't stay in the dorm anymore since all the slots are already filled. Naoto begins to worry because her last apartment was shady, and it was obvious she wasn't feeding herself properly. Satsuki tells him that she will look for a safer place and that he doesn't need to worry too much because she managed to move around before and she survived. He feels uneasy and realizes that if they live together, then he won't worry. Satsuki teases him for thinking dirty, but he exclaims that he means it in a helpful way. Satsuki smiles and says that someday she hopes she can live with him. Naoto reassures her that no matter how far she lives, he will come to her whenever she needs him. 3 months have passed since that day, and Yukari and her friends meet at a donut shop. They note how Yukari has grown more beautiful lately and even cuter with her hair growing out. They mention how she won a beauty pageant and signed with a clothing company. They express their surprise since they know Mio is strict, but Yukari tells them that since Shimana is with her, her mother allowed her to do everything. Her friends comment that Shimana has great convincing powers. Yukari admits that she has been having a lot of fun with the company and is allowed to wear amazing clothes. Her friends are a little concerned, but Yukari shares that she still plans on attending college. Shimana chimes in that the path to Yukari's stardom will be a slow climb, but they can take it easy. One of the girls shares that she heard a rumor that Shigenobu got accepted under a scholarship program at a prestigious university. She invited him to this outing, but he declined because he had plans with Naoto. The girls begin to chat about Naoto, but quickly shift the topic because of Yukari's presence. But she reassures them that she is fine and they can continue. The girls continue and gossip about how Satsuki and Naoto are a couple, but don't seem to be going out a lot. Yukari sits uncomfortably and Shimana asks if she still thinks of Naoto. Yukari quietly admits that she does, but her feelings have calmed down a little since she is no longer in the same class as him. She promises Shimana and herself that once she finishes processing her feelings, she can let go and move forward. Meanwhile, Suzu serves watermelon and tomatoes to everyone helping with the garden today. Random drags the others back into the house to play games while Suzu stays and talks with Shigenobu. She notes that he is at their house a lot even when Naoto is not around. Shigenobu tells her that coming over is not a burden since he enjoys lively places. When he asks if Naoto will be arriving soon, she says that he won't since today is a special day. Shigenobu then realizes that Naoto and Satsuki decided to temporarily live together for the summer break. Naoto arrives at Satsuki's apartment and rings the doorbell. Satsuki answers and asks why he didn't use the spare keys. Naoto explains that he wanted to try something before saying that he is glad she's having him over, then corrects himself and says that he is home now. Satsuki smiles and welcomes him. Morning arrives and Satsuki wakes to find Naoto still beside her in their shared bed. She begins preparing for the day just as Naoto starts to wake up. Since Satsuki is getting ready, Naoto begins making breakfast and it doesn't take long before Satsuki peeks out and asks what they are having. Naoto tells her that he made French toast and some soup. As he sets the table, he muses that things have been peaceful lately. Satsuki takes a bite of the food and the flavor brings tears of joy to her eyes. She offers to wash the dishes so Naoto can get ready for work. Naoto notices that they already have a routine going and Satsuki seems more capable than he assumed. It feels reassuring that she can take better care of herself, but Naoto still finds himself wishing he could do more for her. Before he leaves, he asks if Satsuki would like to change anything. Satsuki doesn't understand what he means, so she simply tells him that his seasoning is perfect. He then explains that he is asking if she wants a change in their routine. Satsuki steps outside and looks at the scenery before suggesting that they should fool around more. Naoto immediately gets flustered, causing Satsuki to smile and admit that she is just kidding, since she plans to honor Tamayo's wishes. Tamayo warned them not to end up like Naoto's parents who got pregnant in high school. Satsuki muses that Tamayo shouldn't expect much since they are in a relationship and living together. Naoto begins to get flustered again and realizes he will be late if he doesn't leave. Satsuki tries to ask for a kiss, but Naoto is already rushing to work, leaving her alone. At work, he gets yelled at by one of the chefs for cutting the vegetables too big. The owner walks in and scolds the chef for being too harsh on Naoto, emphasizing how important it is that all of them get along. Naoto is only allowed to handle menial tasks and not actual cooking. However, errands and food preparation prove to be difficult, and he isn't sure how long he can keep doing this until graduation. As he rushes to bring fresh ingredients to the restaurant, he stops to catch his breath. Meanwhile, Satsuki patiently prepares her plans for college. She notices that it's almost time for Naoto to return, so she readies the apartment so he can relax. While running the bath, she turns on the shower while still inside the tub, accidentally getting herself wet in the process. Naoto arrives home soon after and is greeted by the sight of Satsuki in damp clothes. She stops teasing him and offers him a glass of water so he can relax. As they settle in for bed, Naoto tells her about his day and shares that he wants to become more dependable so he can support them both in the future. Satsuki coaxes him into a kiss, though Naoto hesitates a little. Still, Satsuki manages to convince him to indulge her for a while. By morning, Naoto wakes and notices Satsuki getting ready to head to school. She explains that the school is holding an entrance exam seminar that she wants to attend. She asks if Naoto will head home for the day. Naoto confirms, but he promises to return to her apartment by tomorrow afternoon. Satsuki stares at him and suddenly turns red, reminding him that what happened yesterday needs to stay a secret. At school, Abe prances around the halls, excited for the seminar to end. He notices Satsuki nearby, accompanied by some girls. He overhears part of their conversation, and it hints that Satsuki seems to be feeling sick and hasn't gotten her period yet. Abe immediately pales and assumes she is pregnant. He panics and decides to call Shigenobu. Shigenobu is busy helping Suzu with her summer homework. They finish and she thanks him for his help. Suzu shares that Naoto will be coming home tonight and that Tamayo will be serving sushi for the occasion. Shigenobu smiles at her excitement, and Suzu decides to try her chances by inviting him to hang out with her someday. Shigenobu suggests they all have a barbecue together, which leaves Suzu flustered, since he doesn't realize she was trying to ask him out. Shigenobu then surprises her by saying that she deserves a man more honest than he is and excuses himself to take a call. Once Shigenobu reaches a good distance, he calls Abe. Abe tells him that he overheard Satsuki and her friends talking, and it sounded like Satsuki was pregnant. Shigenobu remains calm and tells Abe that he'll ask Naoto about it, since it's unlikely Naoto would be careless. Meanwhile, Satsuki and her friends are at the nurse's office. It turns out she has a slight fever. Satsuki admits she also accidentally ate too much in the morning. Naoto treats Shigenobu and Abe to a meal from the restaurant. They are both amazed since some of the dishes come from Naoto's staff meals. Abe gets sidetracked with the food but suddenly announces that they have an urgent matter to discuss. Shigenobu asks if Satsuki and Naoto are doing fine. Naoto is taken aback and confirms that it has only been 2 weeks since they started living together. Abe realizes it's too soon, and Shigenobu is relieved that Satsuki isn't pregnant. However, Naoto suddenly admits that he had visited her place before that. This makes both of them panic, but Shigenobu keeps a calm tone and tells Naoto that Satsuki might be pregnant. He shares that Abe had overheard her saying she felt sick. Naoto panics over Satsuki's condition and checks his phone. He notices Satsuki still hasn't messaged him, and out of worry, he decides to return to the apartment to check on her. Later in the evening, Satsuki wakes up and notices Naoto is back. She asks what happened with Suzu, and Naoto explains that Suzu insisted he stay with Satsuki so he could take care of her. Satsuki feels guilty and apologizes for causing him trouble. Naoto reassures her that he can return home anytime and reminds her that the reason he is living with her is so he can help take care of her. Naoto checks her temperature, and Satsuki tells him that her fever has gone down. She says she wants to wipe the sweat off and asks if Naoto can wipe her back. He does so without complaint, and Satsuki asks how he found out she was sick. Naoto tells her that Abe had told him, though there had been a bit of a misunderstanding. He mentions that they also met with Shigenobu earlier that day, and that he noticed Shigenobu has been acting a little strange lately. He adds that Shigenobu has always been popular, but has never mentioned dating. Satsuki admits she has some idea, recalling the time she once saw Shigenobu's phone and noticed a girl in a contact photo. She hints to Naoto that Shigenobu's type is very different from what people assume. Naoto doesn't fully understand but decides not to overthink it. A few days later, they meet with Shigenobu and Abe and tell them that Satsuki is not pregnant. Abe is surprised, convinced that something must have happened since they now live together. Naoto tries to deny that they are doing anything physical, but Satsuki calmly admits that they kiss a lot. After recovering from his embarrassment, Naoto explains that they plan to stay platonic until they graduate. Abe apologizes and praises their resolve. Naoto asks why Shigenobu asked to meet at the beach, and Shigenobu explains that he is looking for his ex-girlfriend. He tells them that they dated for a month when he was in middle school and that the girl is 3 years older than him. Satsuki asks if the girl's name is Aki, because that was the name she saw in his contacts. Shigenobu confirms it and says that the time Satsuki caught Aki calling him was actually the first time she had contacted him since they broke up. He never answered, but Aki left him a voicemail. He eventually tried to call her back, but her number was no longer in service. Her voicemail told him that she was working in a cafe by the beach, so he wanted to try searching for her. Satsuki complains because she wants to go home, but Shigenobu promises her a barbecue if she waits, which works. Naoto joins him in the search and learns that Shigenobu was worried about him and Satsuki because of his own experience with Aki. They had broken up because Aki admitted she was pregnant, and the child belonged to her ex-boyfriend, not Shigenobu. She wanted to leave Shigenobu so she could return to her ex. Naoto is shocked, since he never imagined someone like Shigenobu would have complicated relationship problems. Shigenobu quietly admits that his one experience with romance was extremely shallow. He says he regrets never taking the call from his first love, and now just wants to confirm that she's doing well so he can move on and find a new relationship. He ends up telling Naoto how he first met Aki and how casually she asked him to go out with her. He was so taken aback by her beauty and confidence that he agreed on the spot. Naoto smiles at how simple Shigenobu's story sounds. Shigenobu explained that he was raised very strictly because he is an only child, and that Aki's sunny personality was exactly what he needed to feel less suffocated at that time. About a month after they started dating, Aki commented on how amazing it was that they lasted so long despite being so different. She admitted she felt that Shigenobu was wasted on her. Shigenobu insisted she had many great qualities, like how she was always cheerful and how bad situations never dragged her down. She grew quiet after that, but quickly recovered and invited him to her house. Naoto realizes something and asks if Shigenobu actually went. Shigenobu admits he did, even though he knew the relationship was still new. Naoto clarifies that he was asking to confirm whether Shigenobu knows where Aki's house and suggests that they just visit her. Shigenobu flatly says it would be weird to suddenly show up at her house. Naoto recalls how Satsuki once said she thinks she and Shigenobu are similar because they both struggle to express how they truly feel. Choosing his words, Naoto tells Shigenobu that he is sure Shigenobu is still in love with Aki and hasn't fully moved on. Shigenobu realizes Naoto won't drop the idea, so he contacts Abe to say they'll return later than promised. They arrive at the address and Naoto realizes Aki was her last name. Shigenobu returns from the front door and tells him that no one is home. As they walk back, Shigenobu admits he had hoped to see how her child was doing. He also confesses he once hoped Aki would come back to him after breaking up with her ex, but that never happened. He was ready to welcome her back and even raise the child. Since her call last year, he has started noticing parents with their children everywhere, and it makes him think about the short time he had with Aki. He now regrets not fighting for her back then and simply letting her go. Naoto feels sorry for him and apologizes for being able to do nothing but listen, but Shigenobu says he is grateful just to finally talk about his past love. When they return to the beach, Shigenobu spots a child and Aki in the distance. Aki notices him and cheerfully approaches with her daughter. She says she's doing well, which makes Shigenobu smile. As he prepares to leave, Aki tells him that she broke up with her daughter's father and raised her alone. She says she wanted to call him last year to tell him she was getting married to a new man, someone she found thanks to Shigenobu's words back then. He gives Aki one last smile and wishes her and her family well. When they return for the barbecue, he tells Satsuki what happened. He says he's satisfied with the closure he received. Satsuki thinks about the story and admits she can't imagine being a mother or belonging to a family. Shigenobu reassures her that she'll eventually reach that point with Naoto. When Naoto scolds her to eat more vegetables, she happily goes to his side with a shy smile. She tells him she would like to return to the beach with him and Suzu someday. Shigenobu corrects her, saying she should have just told Naoto she wanted private time with him. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes every week.